I am James Washington, 77 years old, and what happened on Thanksgiving Day 2024 changed everything. As a retired contractor who built homes across Austin, Texas for over 50 years, I thought I had seen every kind of disrespect, but nothing prepared me for what my son-in-law Connor Hayes did that Thursday evening. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family who underestimated your worth. The November sun was already setting when I pulled into the driveway at 5:00 p.m. sharp. My daughter Aaliyah had invited me for Thanksgiving dinner at the house I built with my own hands back in 1994, the same house where I raised her after her mother Dorothy passed 5 years ago, the same house I let her and Connor move into 4 years ago when they said it was temporary. 3 unfamiliar cars sat parked at careless angles in my driveway, expensive cars, BMW, Mercedes, Audi. I checked my watch again. 5 o'clock exactly, just like Aaliyah said. I walked to the front door and knocked. Inside I heard laughter, music, the clink of wine glasses. I knocked again, louder this time. The door swung open and Connor filled the frame. 6'2", broad-shouldered, wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my truck payment. He did not step aside. "You are late," he said. "I am right on time, actually," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Aaliyah invited me for 5. He glanced back over his shoulder, then at me like he was calculating something. "We are in the middle of things. It is 5 o'clock, Connor. I am here for Thanksgiving dinner." He shrugged and finally moved, but it was not welcoming, more like tolerating. I stepped into my own house and stopped. The dining room was full of strangers, 8, maybe 9 white folks I had never seen before, all seated around the table I had refinished last spring. Young people, Connor's age, holding wine glasses and looking at me with mild curiosity, the kind of look you give someone's elderly relative who wanders in during a party. Aaliyah emerged from the kitchen carrying a serving bowl. My daughter, 38 years old and still beautiful like her mother had been. Same high cheekbones, same careful way of moving. She saw me and her eyes skittered away. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart," I said. "Hi, Dad." Her voice barely made it across the room. Connor moved past me close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. "Not accidental. We are just about to eat. You showed up at an awkward time. The invitation said 5 o'clock. I repeated, looking around the room again. "It is 5 o'clock. One of Connor's friends, a 30-something guy with a beard, raised his wine glass slightly. Acknowledgement or mockery, I could not tell. A woman next to him whispered something and they both smiled. I scanned the table. Turkey at the center, sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, rolls, every chair occupied, every place setting claimed, all white faces except my daughter's. Where should I sit? The question hung there. Connor tilted his head, making a show of surveying his own arrangement. "That is a good question." Someone laughed nervously. A woman in a red sweater said, "Maybe we can squeeze in another chair." "No need." Connor's voice carried that particular satisfaction of someone about to deliver a punchline. "I have got the perfect spot." He walked into the kitchen. I heard cabinets opening, something plastic scraping. Aaliyah stood frozen by the table, still holding the serving bowl. Our eyes met for half a second before she looked down. Connor returned carrying a plastic plate, the cheap kind, white with a flimsy rim that you would use for a child's picnic. He walked past the dining table, past all his friends watching with uncertain expressions, and set it on the floor near the entrance. Right there on the hardwood I had installed myself. Then he went back to the table and started scraping. He took the serving spoon from the turkey platter and dropped dried-out pieces onto the plastic plate, added a scoop of congealed gravy, some stuffing that had been sitting too long. He moved methodically like he had planned this. He placed the plate back on the floor, straightened up, and smiled. "Right here works for you, James." Nobody moved. The room had gone completely silent except for someone's uncomfortable breathing. I could feel my heart pounding, but I kept my face neutral. 77 years old, and I was standing in my own house watching a white man put food on the floor for me like I was a dog. "What are you doing?" I asked quietly. "Giving you exactly what you deserve." Connor crossed his arms. "You always said you were not picky about food." The bearded guy let out a short laugh, then caught himself. Connor glanced at him with a smirk. "Something funny about family taking care of family, right?" I looked at my daughter. She was staring at her own plate, hands gripping the serving bowl so tight her knuckles had gone pale. Her lips pressed together. She knew. She had known this was coming and she had said nothing. That silence cut deeper than anything Connor had done. I stood there looking at that plastic plate with its pile of scraps positioned exactly where you would put food for a dog. The house settled around me with familiar sounds, the furnace clicking on, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Sounds I had heard for 30 years. I had built this table, paid for the food on it. I owned every brick in these walls. My grandfather was born in 1910 in Mississippi. He told me stories about eating scraps from the master's table standing in the kitchen while white folks ate in the dining room. He survived that, built a life anyway, taught me to build with my hands, taught me dignity. I looked at Connor one more time, then at Aaliyah, who still would not meet my eyes, then at those white faces around my table, some looking uncomfortable, now others still smirking. My grandfather ate from the master's scraps, I said quietly. Not me. I turned and walked to the door. No shouting, no pleading, just one foot in front of the other, my shoulders straight, my head up. Behind me I heard chair legs scraping, someone clearing their throat. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. Before it closed completely, I heard laughter resume, easy, relieved laughter. The party continuing. I stood there for a moment in the November cold, my breath making clouds in the air. Keys in my pocket, the keys to the house I was locked out of, the keys to the property I still owned. I got in my truck and did not start it right away. Through the dining room window I could see them all eating, now passing dishes, someone pouring more wine. Connor leaned back in his chair at the head of my table, saying something that made everyone laugh. My hands found the steering wheel and gripped it. The house lights glowed warm against the darkening sky. Something had shifted in me during those few minutes. Something had gone hard and cold while I stood there watching Connor's performance. Old James would have apologized, would have laughed it off, made some joke about eating in the truck, anything to keep the peace. But I was done keeping peace with people who wanted war. I turned the key and drove away. But something stayed behind, the weight of trying to please people who saw me as less than human. By morning that weight would be gone, and Connor Hayes would learn what it costs to mistake patience for weakness. I do not remember the drive home. One moment I was pulling out of that driveway, the next I was standing in my own kitchen, still holding my truck keys. My apartment, modest but paid off. Mine felt empty in a way it never had before. The jacket was still on, my good shoes too. I stood there staring at nothing. No, not nothing. I was staring at years of choices that had led to a plastic plate on the floor. On the counter sat a bag from the grocery store, the Thanksgiving meal I had picked up that afternoon. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce still sealed. I had forgotten about it entirely. I left it there and moved to the kitchen table, sat down, pulled out my laptop. The hours that followed had a strange clarity, like my vision had sharpened. I opened my banking app, first scrolled back through 4 years of statements highlighting transactions in my mind. Rent-free living. The house they occupied had a market value of $1,500 a month. 4 years. $72,000. The business investment. Connor's tech startup that was going to revolutionize something or other. I had written a check for $80,000. He had signed a promissory note, official and notarized. That document was in my filing cabinet. Smaller loans. Emergency help with credit card debt, car repairs, medical bills that their insurance supposedly did not cover. I added it up. Another $15,000, maybe more. The total sat in my mind like a stone. $175,000 minimum. I got up and pulled the filing cabinet open. Found the promissory note in a folder labeled Connor Business. My handwriting on the tab, neat and hopeful. The paper was crisp, the signatures clear, signed, dated, witnessed. Next folder, property documents. The deed to the house they lived in, titled solely in my name. $175,000. 4 years of generosity turned into ammunition. I sat back down with the documents spread across the table. After Dorothy died, I wanted Aaliyah close. When Connor asked for startup money, I told myself I was helping family. When they asked to move in temporarily, I said yes because I did not want to be alone. But I was not being generous. I was buying a relationship with my daughter, and Connor knew it. He saw a lonely old man with property and money, easy target. I opened my laptop browser and typed Texas eviction law, no lease. The results loaded. I read carefully, taking notes on a legal pad. Texas Property Code Section 2402. For month-to-month tenancy or tenancy at will, landlord must provide notice to vacate. Minimum 30 days for residential property. If tenant refuses to leave after notice period, Landlord can file eviction suit. Without a rental agreement, which we had never signed, Connor and Aaliyah were technically tenants at will. I owned the property, paid all taxes, had documentation, more searching, promissory note enforcement Texas, contract law, statute of limitations, 4 years for written contracts. Connor's note was 3 years old, well within the window. I kept reading until the sky started turning gray outside my window. I had not slept, had not even felt tired. But then I found something that made my blood run cold. I was searching for information about tenant rights when I stumbled onto a forum, one of those places where people ask anonymous questions about legal situations. The post was from 18 months ago. The username was CH2023. The title read, "How to Get Black Father-in-Law to Sign Over Property." I clicked it. My hands were shaking. The post said I married into a black family. Father-in-law is old-school built wealth from nothing, very proud. He owns multiple properties. We live in one rent-free. He gave me $80,000 for a business venture that did not work out. He has no other kids, no other family. My wife is his only heir. How do I speed up the inheritance process without it looking suspicious? He is healthy, but old. I need to get the property in my name now. He is emotional about his late wife. I can use that. He is also sensitive about race stuff. If I play it right, can I get him to sign over the deed? Anyone dealt with elderly black property owners? They are stubborn, but there are psychological pressure points. The responses were worse. Other users suggesting manipulation tactics, isolation strategies, how to make the old man feel like a burden, how to convince the daughter to side with the husband. One comment said, make him feel like he is in the way, like he does not belong in his own house. Break his spirit first. Then he will sign anything to keep peace. Another said, Thanksgiving or Christmas is perfect. Public humiliation in front of your friends. Make him feel small. Old black men care about respect. Take that away and they crumble. I read it 3 times. CH 2023. Connor Hayes 2023. It had to be him. The details matched perfectly. Black father-in-law, multiple properties, $80,000 loan, wife as only heir. The timeline fit. 18 months ago, right when Connor started getting more controlling with Aaliyah. Right when he started suggesting I was getting too old to manage my own properties. Tonight was not spontaneous cruelty. It was calculated, planned, discussed with strangers on the internet. The plastic plate on the floor was step 1 of a strategy to break me down. I took screenshots, saved them to 3 different folders, printed copies. This was evidence. The decision that had been forming all night crystallized with the daylight. I had spent years avoiding conflict, calling it keeping the peace. But there was no peace, just me shrinking smaller and smaller until I could fit on a plastic plate on the floor. Connor made a calculation. He thought I was too old, too soft, too desperate for family to fight back. He was wrong. I stood up joint stiff from sitting all night, walked to the bathroom, showered, shaved, dressed in pressed khakis and a button-down shirt. Business clothes. The face in the mirror looked older than 77, but the eyes were different. Harder. Clearer. I made coffee, drank it standing at the counter. Then I took out my legal pad and wrote a list in neat handwriting. David Porter, attorney. Property documents. Promissory note. Bank statements. Eviction notice requirements. Texas law. Forum screenshots. I looked up David Porter's cell number. He handled real estate law for my construction business, had for 20 years. Professional relationship, not friends. That was important. It was 6:15 in the morning. I called anyway. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep. James. What is wrong? I need an emergency meeting today, this morning. Silence. Then, it is the day after Thanksgiving. I know what day it is, David. Something in my voice must have registered. 9 o'clock. My office. I will be there. James, he said, suddenly more awake. What happened? I will explain when I see you. But David, I need you to know this is not about being petty. This is not about pride. This is about a man who planned to humiliate me, who posted online about manipulating me, who thinks being old and black makes me easy prey. Silence on the line. Then David said quietly, I will have coffee ready. By 8:30, I was sitting in my truck outside David's office building in downtown Austin. The streets were empty, most businesses closed for the holiday weekend. But David's car was already in the lot. I gathered my folders, my documentation, my printed screenshots, everything organized, everything labeled. Dorothy always said I was meticulous, kept every receipt, every contract, every piece of paper. She used to tease me about it, said I could not throw anything away, but today that habit was going to save me. I walked into the building, took the elevator to the 3rd floor. David's office door was open. He stood there, coffee pot in hand, looking at me with concern and something else. Recognition, maybe, like he knew what kind of fight was coming. "Come in, James," he said. "Tell me everything." I walked in, set my folders on his desk, looked him in the eye. "I need to evict my daughter and son-in-law from my property, and I need to sue Connor Hayes for $80,000. And David, I need you to understand something. This is not just business. This is war." David poured 2 cups of coffee, sat down, opened the first folder. "Then let us make sure we win," he said. David Porter's office was exactly what you would expect from a man who had practiced real estate law for 35 years. Organized, professional, bookshelves lined with legal volumes, a large mahogany desk that had seen thousands of contracts, family photos on the credenza behind him, his wife, his 3 kids, all grown now. He had built his practice from nothing, just like I had built my business. 2 black men who understood what it meant to create something in a world that did not always want us to succeed. He spread my documents across his desk methodically. The property deed first, then the promissory note, bank statements next, finally the forum screenshots. He read each one carefully, making notes on a yellow legal pad. I watched his expression change as he processed the information. Professional neutrality gave way to something harder. Anger, maybe, or recognition of a pattern he had seen before. "James," he said finally, looking up at me, "in 30 years of practicing law, I have seen this exact scenario play out dozens of times. White spouse marries into a black family with property, slowly isolates them from assets. It is textbook financial elder abuse with a racial component that makes it even more insidious." He tapped the forum screenshots. "But this is premeditation." He planned the Thanksgiving incident, discussed it with strangers online, used racist stereotypes about elderly black men being easy to manipulate. This is not just family drama. This is calculated exploitation. "Can we use these screenshots in court?" I asked. "Absolutely. They establish intent. They show systematic targeting. And James, the racial element actually works in our favor here. Texas courts take elder abuse seriously. When you add evidence of racial targeting, of psychological manipulation based on race, it strengthens our case significantly." I felt something loosen in my chest, relief maybe, or validation that I was not overreacting. David opened another folder. "Let me see the property documentation. I need to verify title tax records, anything that establishes your sole ownership." I slid the deed across to him. "Purchased in 1994. Sole owner James Washington. Never added Connor's name. Never added Aaliyah's name. The house was mine, clear and simple." "Good," David said. "This is straightforward then. You own the property. They have no lease agreement. They have paid no rent. Under Texas property code, they are tenants at will. You have absolute right to terminate that tenancy with proper notice." "What about the loan?" I asked. He picked up the promissory note, examined it closely. Signed, dated, notarized. $80,000. Due on demand or within 5 years of signing. No payments made. He looked at me. "James, this is an enforceable contract. You can file suit for breach of contract and demand full repayment immediately." The evidence was clear. The law was on my side. But I had lived 77 years as a black man in America. I knew that clear evidence and the law being on your side did not always guarantee justice. "David," I said carefully, "I need you to be honest with me. What are we really looking at here in terms of how this plays in court? A 77-year-old black man evicting his daughter and white son-in-law. How does that look to a judge? To a jury, if it comes to that." David leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers. "This is the conversation we need to have. And I am glad you are thinking about it because it matters." He pulled out another legal pad and started writing. "Here is the reality. Texas courts, especially in Austin, are generally fair. We have black judges, Hispanic judges, white judges who understand racial dynamics, but we also have implicit bias, the stereotype of the angry black man, The stereotype of the helpless white couple being victimized by an unreasonable elder. Connor will play the sympathy card, I said. Absolutely. He will paint himself as the devoted son-in-law who tried to help, who cared for you after Dorothy died, who only wanted to keep the family together. He will make you look like the villain. I felt my jaw tighten. So how do we fight that? With documentation, with facts, with witnesses who can testify to your character and his pattern of behavior. David leaned forward. James, you have been in this community for 50 years. You have built homes for half the black families in East Austin. You are a deacon at First Baptist. You have a reputation for integrity. That matters. He tapped the forum screenshots again. And we have this. His own words admitting to psychological manipulation, discussing how to exploit racial dynamics. That is his voice, his intent, his pattern. No jury can ignore that. But what if the judge is white? I asked. What if the jury is mostly white? What if they see me as the problem? Then we make sure they cannot. David said firmly. We file everything perfectly. We document every interaction. We bring character witnesses. We show your financial records proving you gave them $175,000 in support. We show the promissory note he signed and never honored. We present the evidence of his online posts. We make it impossible for anyone to see you as anything other than what you are. A man who was systematically exploited and finally said enough. He paused, looked at me directly. James, I am not going to lie to you. Race will be a factor in this case, whether we want it to be or not. Connor will use it. He will play the victim. But we have truth on our side. And in my experience, when you combine truth with meticulous documentation and strong legal arguments, justice usually prevails. Usually, not always, but usually. I appreciated his honesty. David had never patronized me, never made promises he could not keep. That was why I trusted him. So what is our strategy? I asked. David pulled out a fresh page and started outlining. Two-pronged approach. First, we file a notice to vacate. 30-day notice as required by Texas law. We send it certified mail return receipt requested. We also hand-deliver it with a witness present. We document everything. He continued writing. Second, we file a separate civil suit for breach of contract on the promissory note. $80,000 plus interest. 3 years of accrued interest at the rate specified in the contract. That brings the total to approximately $92,000. We file both actions simultaneously, he said. The eviction goes through justice court. Fast process, usually resolved within 60 days. The breach of contract goes through district court. Slower, but more thorough. By the time the eviction is final, we will be well into discovery on the breach of contract case. What about his criminal behavior? I asked. The fraud online. The manipulation. That is where it gets interesting, David said. If we can prove he defrauded you through false pretenses, we can potentially bring criminal charges. Wire fraud, financial exploitation of an elderly person. Those are felonies. But that requires law enforcement involvement. We would need to file a police report. Should we do that? Let me make some calls first, David said. I want to talk to a prosecutor I know, see if there is appetite for criminal charges. But James, here is what you need to understand. Once we start this process, there is no going back. Your relationship with Aaliyah will be damaged. Maybe permanently. Connor will fight dirty. He will use social media. He will try to destroy your reputation. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the plastic plate on the floor, the laughter of white strangers in my house, Connor's online posts about manipulating elderly black men. Aaliyah's silence. David, I said quietly. My relationship with my daughter was destroyed the moment she watched her husband humiliate me and said nothing. What we are doing now is not about destroying anything. It is about stopping the destruction that is already happening. He nodded slowly. Then we move forward. I will draft the notice to vacate today. We will serve it Monday morning. The breach of contract suit will be filed by Wednesday. And James, one more thing. What is that document? Every single interaction from now on. Every phone call, every text message, every conversation. Keep a journal, date and time, everything. If Connor threatens you, record it. If Texas law allows. If he tries to intimidate you, document it. We are building a case and every piece of evidence matters. I understand. Good. David stood up, extended his hand. We shook. James, you did the right thing coming to me. And I promise you, we are going to make sure Connor Hayes learns that exploiting people because of their age or their race has consequences. I picked up my folders, felt the weight of documentation in my hands. 30 years of meticulous record-keeping was about to pay off. How long will this take, I asked. The eviction, 60 to 90 days if they fight it. The lawsuit could be 6 months to a year. But James, the important thing is that it ends. One way or another, Connor Hayes will not be living in your house or spending your money this time next year. I walked out of David's office into the cold November morning. The streets of Austin were starting to fill with Black Friday shoppers. People laughing, carrying bags, enjoying the holiday weekend. Normal life. My life had stopped being normal the moment Connor put that plate on the floor, but it was about to become something better. It was about to become mine again. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I was at my apartment, coffee in hand, when my phone rang at 9:30. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something told me to pick up. James Connor's voice came through loud and aggressive. "What the hell is this lawyer bullshit? You seriously sent me eviction papers over what?" "A misunderstanding." I said nothing. Let him talk. David had coached me on this. Let him incriminate himself. "Hello? Are you there?" Connor's voice rose. "You know what your problem is. You people are so damn sensitive. It was a joke. A Thanksgiving joke. Everyone thought it was funny." "You people," I repeated slowly. "What people would that be, Connor?" He caught himself, but too late. "I did not mean it like that. You know what I meant. Old people. Elderly folks are sensitive about everything these days." I put the phone on speaker and pressed record. Texas is a one-party consent state. I could legally record this conversation without telling him. "Connor, I am going to stop you right there. You are going to hear from my attorney, David Porter. All communication goes through him from now on." "Your attorney?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "You are kidding me. James, come on. We are family. We can work this out. Aaliyah is devastated. You are breaking her heart over a stupid mistake." Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. I had been expecting this. David had said he would come by after filing the paperwork. "Hold on, Connor," I said. I walked to the door, opened it. David stood there, briefcase in hand, looking professional and ready for battle. I gestured him inside, pointed to the phone on speaker. David mouthed, "Keep him talking." "Connor, you still there?" I asked. "Yeah, I am here. Look, can we just talk about this like adults? I do not understand why you are being so extreme." David moved closer to the phone. He held up a legal document and pointed to specific sections while Connor continued talking. "We took care of you after Dorothy died," Connor was saying. "We made sure you were not alone. We included you in everything, and this is how you repay us, by trying to kick us out of our home." "Your home?" I asked. "That is interesting, because the deed says it is my home. You know what I mean. We have been living there for 4 years. We have rights, tenant rights. You cannot just throw us out." David held up a finger, then took the phone from me. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice calm and authoritative. "This is David Porter, attorney at law. I represent James Washington. All further communication needs to go through me." Silence on the line. Then Connor said, "Who the hell are you? I just told you. I am Mr. Washington's attorney. You and Mrs. Hayes have received notice to vacate the property located at 2847 Oak Street within 30 days, as required by Texas Property Code. Additionally, you have been served with a civil lawsuit for breach of contract regarding the $80,000 promissory note you signed and have failed to repay." "This is insane," Connor sputtered. "You cannot do this." "We absolutely can, and we are," David replied. "The documentation is clear. Mr. Washington owns the property. You have no lease agreement. You have paid no rent. You have defaulted on a legal contract. These are facts, not opinions." Connor's voice changed then, became darker, more threatening. "You do not know who you are messing with, old man. I have friends, connections, lawyers who will eat you alive. You think some small-time attorney in Austin scares me?" David smiled slightly. "Mr. Hayes, I have practiced law in Texas for 35 years. I have handled cases involving millions of dollars in real estate. Your threats are noted and will be documented. I suggest you retain counsel immediately because this case is proceeding with or without your cooperation." "You are making a huge mistake," Connor said, his voice shaking with rage now. "Both of you. I will destroy you. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are, James. I will put you on blast all over social media. I will tell everyone how you abandoned your daughter, how you are a bitter old man who cannot let go of the past." "Are you finished?" David asked coolly. "I am just getting started. You do not know what I am capable of. Then let me tell you what I am capable of, I said, taking the phone back from David. I survived Jim Crow Connor. I built my first house when banks would not loan money to black contractors. I raised my daughter alone after my wife died. I have been underestimated, discriminated against, and disrespected by better men than you. I paused. Let that sink in. You think putting a plate on my floor broke me? You think your internet threats scare me? Boy, I have survived things you cannot even imagine, and I am still standing, still building, still fighting. You made a calculation that I was too old and too weak to stand up to you. You were wrong. Connor said nothing for a long moment. Then, we will see about that. This is not over. You are absolutely right, I said. This is not over. But it will be. And when it is, you will be out of my house, you will repay every dollar you owe me, and you will learn that exploiting elderly black men has consequences. Serious consequences. I hung up. My hand was shaking slightly, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From the satisfaction of finally standing up and saying no more. David was grinning. That he said was perfect. Every word documented. Every threat recorded. He just handed us more ammunition. Good, I said, because this fight is just beginning. Tuesday morning, my phone started buzzing at 6 a.m. Text messages, Facebook notifications, emails. I picked it up confused. Then I saw it. Connor had posted on Facebook. The post was long, carefully crafted, and every word was designed to make me look like a monster. The headline read, "My father-in-law is evicting his daughter into homelessness. We need help." The text said, "I am heartbroken to share this publicly, but we need support. My wife Aaliyah and I have been caring for her father James since his wife Dorothy passed away 5 years ago. We moved into his house to make sure he was not alone, to help him maintain the property, to be there for him in his grief. We have cooked for him, cleaned for him, included him in every holiday and celebration. Last week at Thanksgiving there was a small misunderstanding, a joke that did not land right. Instead of talking to us about it like family, he served us with eviction papers, 30 days to leave, in the middle of winter right before Christmas. We have nowhere to go, no savings, because we have spent everything taking care of him and his properties. Aaliyah is devastated. Her father, the man who raised her, is throwing us out onto the street. Please keep us in your prayers. Family is supposed to mean something, but apparently not to everyone." He had attached photos, one of him and Aaliyah at some charity event looking wholesome and happy, another of the house exterior making it look like their home, a third of them at church, at a white evangelical church I had never seen them attend, positioned to look like devoted Christians being persecuted. What he did not mention was the plastic plate, the $80,000 he owed me, the forum posts about manipulating elderly black men, the 4 years of rent-free living. I read it 3 times, feeling my blood pressure rise with each word. Then I looked at the comments. 200 comments already, and the post had only been up for 3 hours. I scrolled through them, each one a knife to the gut. This is heartbreaking. Praying for you both. No one deserves this, especially not from family. Your father-in-law should be ashamed. You took care of him, and this is how he repays you. Typical. Old people get bitter and take it out on everyone around them. My grandfather was the same way. Sue him. Seriously. You have rights as tenants. He cannot just throw you out. I am so sorry you are going through this. Some people do not appreciate what they have until it is gone. What kind of father does this to his own daughter? Unbelievable. Have you tried talking to him? Maybe he is not in his right mind. Elderly people sometimes make bad decisions. 3 comments came from people I knew. Business acquaintances. One was from Tom Rodriguez, a contractor I had worked with on 2 projects. He wrote, "Connor, I know James Washington. This does not sound like him. There must be more to this story." But his comment was buried under dozens of others supporting Connor. The narrative was set. Evil elderly father kicks out loving young couple. Simple, compelling, completely false. I wanted to respond. Wanted to write my own post explaining what really happened. Wanted to show them the forum screenshots, the promissory note, the evidence of Connor's manipulation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I remembered David's advice. Do not engage. They respond in court, not on social media. I put the phone down, walked away, made coffee, tried to breathe. An hour later, Aaliyah posted her own message. Hers was shorter but somehow more painful. No long explanation, just a simple statement with a photo attached. I never thought my own father would choose money over his only child. I guess I did not know him as well as I thought. Heartbroken does not even begin to cover it. The photo was from my 35th birthday party 15 years ago. Aaliyah was maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting on my shoulders at the park, both of us laughing. Dorothy had taken that picture. I remembered that day. The sun was shining. Aaliyah had just learned to ride a bike without training wheels. We had celebrated with ice cream and a picnic. It was one of the happiest days of my life, and now my daughter was using that memory, that joy, to paint me as a villain. The comments on her post were even worse. Women especially came to her defense. Your father does not deserve you. Stay strong, Mama. This breaks my heart. No child should go through this. I am so sorry, honey. You deserve better. Cut toxic people out of your life, even if they are family. You will be better off. He will regret this when you are gone, and he is alone. I stared at that childhood photo for a long time. When had I lost my daughter? Was it when Dorothy died? When Connor came into her life? Or had it been gradual, so slow I did not notice until she was completely gone? My phone rang. I almost did not answer, but the caller ID said, Meyer Construction. That was James Meyer, one of my biggest commercial clients. James, this is Tom Meyer. I need to talk to you about the Lincoln project. Good morning, Tom. What is going on with Lincoln? He hesitated. Look, I saw some things on social media, posts about family issues. Normally, I would not get involved in personal matters, but I have investors asking questions. They are concerned about contractor reliability and stability. My stomach dropped. Tom, I can explain. I am sure you can. But right now I have 3 investors who saw your son-in-law's post and they are worried. One of them actually said, if he treats family like that, how will he treat subcontractors and suppliers, James? I need to pause the Lincoln project until this gets resolved. Tom, I have been in business for 50 years. I have never missed a deadline, never defaulted on a contract, never failed to deliver quality work. My personal life has nothing to do with my professional reputation. I understand that. You understand that. But investors do not always see it that way. I am sorry, James. Once this legal situation is cleared up, we can revisit. But for now, I need to put Lincoln on hold. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling like the walls were closing in. 2 more calls came that afternoon. Both clients asking to postpone projects. Both citing concerns about my situation. Connor's social media campaign was working. He was not just attacking me, he was attacking my livelihood, my reputation, everything I had built. But then something shifted. My phone rang again. This time it was Pastor Williams from First Baptist Church. Brother James, he said without preamble, I saw what Connor posted. And I want you to know nobody at First Baptist believes a word of it. Pastor, I started. Let me finish. I have known you for 30 years. I watched you care for Sister Dorothy when she was sick. I watched you raise Aaliyah right. I baptized that girl. And I have seen Connor Hayes exactly twice in 4 years, both times when he wanted something. So when I see him posting about how devoted he is, claiming you are abandoning family, I know that is a lie. Thank you, Pastor. That means more than you know. There is more. I made some calls, talked to some of the deacons. We started asking around about Connor Hayes. And Brother James, you need to know you are not his first target. What do you mean Minister Robert Johnson over at Ebenezer Baptist? His daughter dated Connor 3 years ago. Same pattern. Connor moved in with their family, borrowed money, isolated the daughter from the church community. Took $40,000 before Minister Johnson finally put his foot down. They never reported it because they were ashamed. My hands went cold. You are saying Connor has done this before. That is exactly what I am saying. And Minister Johnson is willing to talk to your lawyer. There might be others. We are looking into it. But James, you need to know the black community in East Austin has your back. We know what Connor is, and we are going to make sure everyone else knows too. I hung up feeling something I had not felt in days. Hope. Not just for my case, but for the truth to come out. That evening, Brenda Matthews called. Brenda had been my bookkeeper for 20 years, handling accounts for my rental properties and remaining construction contracts. She was 72, sharp as a tack, and did not miss anything when it came to numbers. James, she said, her voice tight with anger, I need you to come to my office tomorrow morning. First thing, I found something in the books. Something you need to see right now. What is it? Brenda. Not over the phone. But James, it is bad. Real bad. Connor has been doing more than just living rent-free. He has been stealing from you. And I have proof. Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. I was sitting in Brenda Matthews' office. She had a small space above a bookstore on East 6th Street, organized and efficient like everything else about her. File cabinets lined one wall. Her desk was immaculate. 2 computer monitors displayed spreadsheets with numbers highlighted in red. Brenda did not waste time on pleasantries. She turned one monitor toward me and pointed. 3 months ago, you remember when Connor said he wanted to help with client outreach? Said he had marketing experience from his tech startup, I remembered. He had seemed eager. Said he wanted to contribute to the family business. I had been foolish enough to believe him. You gave him access to your client contact list, Brenda continued. Email addresses, phone numbers, project histories. You thought he was going to help drum up new business. That is what he said, I replied, already feeling sick about where this was going. Brenda clicked to another screen. Instead, he used your business identity to defraud 3 clients. All of them elderly, all of them black, all of them people who trusted the Washington name. She pulled up the first file. Mr. Leonard Thompson, 72 years old, retired postal worker, saved his whole life to build an addition on his house for his grandchildren. Connor approached him in June, said he was your new business partner. Showed him a business card that said Connor Hayes, Partner Relations, Washington Construction. I felt my stomach turn. I never authorized that title. Never gave him business cards. I know, Brenda said grimly. He had them printed himself. Mr. Thompson paid a $12,000 deposit for a home addition. Connor gave him a contract, took the money, and disappeared. The work was never started. When Mr. Thompson tried to call you, Connor intercepted the calls, told him you were semi-retired and he was handling all new projects. Oh, God, I whispered. It gets worse. Brenda clicked to the next file. Mrs. Patricia Simmons, 68 years old, owns a small restaurant on Manor Road, needed commercial remodeling. Connor approached her at church at Mount Zion Baptist. He specifically targeted her because she knew your reputation. She paid $8,500. Same story. No work. Money gone. How did I not know about this? I asked. Because Connor was careful. He used a separate email account that looked like yours. WashingtonConstructionATX@gmail.com. Your real business email is WashingtonConstruction@net. Close enough that people did not notice. He handled all the communication, collected the deposits in cash or checks made out to cash, never let the transactions touch your actual business accounts. The third victim, Brenda continued, clicking to another file. Mr. Raymond Foster, 75 years old, veteran, owns a duplex that needed renovation for his elderly sister to move in. Connor quoted him $15,000. Mr. Foster paid it in installments over 3 months. Total taken $15,000. No work performed. I did the math in my head. $12,000 plus $8,500 plus $15,000. $35,500. Stolen from people who trusted me. People who trusted my name, my reputation in the black community. Brenda, how did you find this? She leaned back in her chair. Mr. Thompson came to my office last week. He had seen Connor's Facebook post about you evicting him. Something did not sit right with Mr. Thompson. He started asking questions, called some other folks who had worked with you over the years, found Mrs. Simmons and Mr. Foster. They compared notes, realized they had all been scammed by the same man. That is when they came to me. Do they know I had nothing to do with this? They do now. At first, they were angry at you, thought you were part of it. But I showed them your real business records, showed them you never received any of their money, that Connor was operating independently using your name as cover. They understand now. But James, they want justice, and they are willing to testify. I put my head in my hands. These were my people, my community. Connor did not just steal from me. He weaponized my reputation to hurt others like me. There is more, Brenda said quietly. I looked up. How can there possibly be more? She pulled out a manila folder, slid it across the desk. 9 months ago, Connor filed paperwork with Travis County. A gift deed supposedly transferring your house on Oak Street from you to him. As a gift, no money exchanged, just a generous father-in-law giving property to his son-in-law. That is insane. I never signed anything like that. I know. Because the signature is forged. Brenda opened the folder. The document was there, official looking, complete with notary stamp. My signature was at the bottom. Except it was not my signature. Close, but the capital J was wrong. The loop on the W was too wide. Someone had practiced my signature, but not perfectly. How did this not go through, I asked. County clerk caught it. The notary license number did not exist in the Texas database. It was fabricated. The clerk flagged it as suspicious and sent a rejection letter to the property address, which was the Oak Street house, I said, understanding immediately. Connor intercepted it. He got the letter, saw the deed was rejected, and buried the evidence. No one ever told me because I never saw the correspondence. Exactly. Brenda pulled out another document. I filed a request with the county for the full record. The clerk made notes. Possible fraud. Recommend property owner be notified. But because the address on file was the house Connor controlled, that notification never reached you. Can we use this? I asked. Absolutely. This is attempted property theft through forgery. That is a felony. Combined with the client fraud, Connor is not just looking at a civil lawsuit. He is looking at criminal charges. Multiple counts. I stared at the forged deed. My name badly copied. Connor's name as the recipient. The fake notary stamp. All of it designed to steal the house I had built with my own hands. Brenda, I need you to do something for me. I need you to contact Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Simmons, and Mr. Foster. Tell them I want to meet with them. I want to apologize face to face, and I want to make this right. James, this was not your fault. It was my name, my reputation. Connor used me to hurt them. That makes it my responsibility. Brenda nodded slowly. I will set up a meeting. But James, you need to take this to the police. Today. This is beyond civil court now. This is criminal fraud. And the fact that Connor specifically targeted elderly black clients, used racial trust within the community to commit these crimes, that is a hate crime enhancement. I stood up, gathered the documents. You are right. David Porter needs to see this immediately. And then we are going to the police. One more thing, Brenda said as I turned to leave. All three victims, they are not angry at you anymore. Mr. Thompson said something yesterday that stuck with me. He said Brother James built his reputation over 50 years. That white boy tried to steal it in 6 months. But reputation built on truth cannot be stolen by lies. We know who James Washington is. I felt tears sting my eyes but blinked them back. Tell them thank you. Tell them I am going to make sure Connor Hayes pays for every dollar he stole, every lie he told, every person he hurt. They know James. The whole community knows. And we are all behind you. Thursday morning, David and I walked into the Austin Police Department downtown headquarters carrying 3 folders of evidence. Brenda had organized everything meticulously. Client fraud files, the forged deed, bank records, forum screenshots, everything documented, labeled, and ready to present. The detective assigned to our case was Sarah Morrison. She met us in the lobby, a black woman in her mid-40s wearing a professional Navy suit, her badge clipped to her belt. She had natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a firm handshake. Mr. Washington, she said. Mr. Porter, thank you for coming in. I have been reviewing the preliminary information you sent over. This case is more complex than a simple eviction dispute. We followed her through the building to an interview room, small, functional, with a table and recording equipment visible on a shelf. She gestured for us to sit, opened her laptop, and pulled out a legal pad. I have been a detective for 18 years, she said. 12 of those in financial crimes. And I want you to know, Mr. Washington, what your son-in-law did to you fits a pattern I have seen before. White individuals targeting black families with accumulated wealth. It is not random. It is systematic. She clicked on her laptop, turned the screen so we could see. I did some preliminary research after receiving your complaint. Connor Hayes has a history. Not a criminal record, nothing that would show up on a standard background check, but a pattern of behavior that raises serious red flags. What kind of pattern, I asked. Detective Morrison pulled up a social media profile. 3 years ago, Connor was engaged to a woman named Keisha Reynolds, black woman age 32 at the time, daughter of a successful family in Houston. Her father owned 2 car dealerships. Connor dated Keisha for 8 months, moved in with her family, borrowed money for various business ventures. Total amount taken approximately $28,000. The engagement ended when Keisha's brother caught Connor in lies about where the money was going. Did they report it? David asked. No. And that is part of the pattern. Shame, embarrassment, not wanting to admit they were deceived. The family wrote it off as a bad relationship and moved on. But Mr. Washington, Connor specifically chose Keisha because of her family's wealth. He researched them, knew what they owned, knew they had resources. She clicked to another profile. Before Keisha, there was another relationship. Tamara Williams in San Antonio. Also black, also from a family with property and assets. Her father owned a construction business, ironically similar to yours, Mr. Washington. Connor dated Tamara for 6 months, got access to her father's business accounts, and recommended investments that turned out to be fraudulent. The family lost approximately $18,000 before they cut ties. I felt sick. So Connor has been doing this for years, targeting black families specifically. That is what the evidence suggests. Detective Morrison closed her laptop and looked at me directly. Mr. Washington, I believe your son-in-law is what we call a confidence criminal with a racial targeting component. He identifies successful black families, usually those who have built wealth despite systemic barriers. He uses that history against them. The desire to help the next generation, the pride in family achievement, the hope that interracial relationships represent progress. He exploits all of it. Have you contacted these other families? David asked. I reached out yesterday. Both families are willing to cooperate. In fact, Tamara Williams' father wants to file a formal complaint now that he knows Connor is still operating. He said, and I quote, "I thought we were the only ones stupid enough to fall for it. But if he is still doing this to other black families, I want him stopped." Detective Morrison opened another folder. But there is more. Through my investigation, I discovered Connor had a relationship with a family here in Austin before he met your daughter, Minister Robert Johnson's family at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Have you spoken with Minister Johnson? I shook my head. Pastor Williams mentioned him, but I have not made contact yet. Detective Morrison picked up her phone. Let me call him now. He is expecting to hear from me today. She dialed, put the phone on speaker. A deep voice answered on the second ring. Minister Johnson speaking. Minister Johnson, this is Detective Morrison with Austin Police. I am here with James Washington and his attorney David Porter. We are discussing Connor Hayes. There was a long sigh on the other end. Brother Washington, Minister Johnson said, I am sorry we are meeting under these circumstances. I wish I had warned you 3 years ago when that man came sniffing around your family, but I was too ashamed to say anything. Pastor Williams told me a little, I said, but I would like to hear it from you if you are willing to share. I will tell you everything. My daughter Nicole met Connor at a community event in 2021. He presented himself as a young entrepreneur interested in community development, respectful. We welcomed him into our family. He attended church with us, had Sunday dinners at our house, talked about wanting to make a difference in the black community. He sounds familiar, I said bitterly. After 6 months, he proposed to Nicole. We were happy for her. Thought she had found a good man. Then Connor came to me with a business opportunity. Said he wanted to start a nonprofit to help black youth with technology education. Asked for seed money, $40,000. I wrote him a check. He showed me incorporation documents, a business plan, letters of support. It all looked legitimate. The nonprofit was supposed to launch in 3 months. But it never did, I guessed. Never did. Connor kept making excuses. Delays with paperwork, issues with vendors, problems with the website. 6 months went by. I started asking harder questions. That is when things fell apart. Nicole discovered Connor had another relationship going at the same time. A white woman from his past. The nonprofit was fake. The documents were fabricated. The $40,000 was gone, spent on his lifestyle and the other woman. Did you report it to police? Detective Morrison asked. No. Minister Johnson's voice was heavy with regret. I was embarrassed. A minister's supposed to have discernment, and I got conned by a smooth-talking white boy who targeted my family because we had what he wanted. I told myself it was tuition in the school of life, expensive lesson learned, but I should have reported it. If I had, maybe he would not have been able to hurt you and those other families. Minister, you were a victim, David said firmly. The shame belongs to Connor, not to you. Thank you for saying that. But Brother Washington, I want you to know I will testify. I will tell a jury exactly what Connor Hayes did to my family, and I will make sure every black church in Austin knows his name and his face so he cannot do this again. Detective Morrison made notes. So, we have Minister Johnson's family, $40,000 lost. Keisha Reynolds' family in Houston, $28,000. Tamara Williams' family in San Antonio, $18,000. And the 3 clients here in Austin that Connor defrauded using Mr. Washington's name, $35,500, plus the $80,000 promissory note to Mr. Washington himself. She did the math. That is over $200,000 stolen from black families over a 4-year period. This is not a series of bad relationships or business deals gone wrong. This is a predatory pattern. This is systematic targeting. and Mr. Washington, combined with the forged deed attempt and the evidence of his online post discussing manipulation tactics, we have grounds for multiple felony charges. What charges specifically? David asked. Wire fraud for the business scheme using Mr. Washington's company name, forgery for the deed, theft by deception for the multiple victims. And given the clear pattern of racial targeting, the DA may pursue hate crime enhancements. In Texas, if you commit a crime specifically because of someone's race, that is an aggravating factor that increases penalties. I sat back in my chair processing everything. Connor had not just hurt me. He had made a career out of exploiting black families, using our success against us, weaponizing our desire for progress and inclusion. When can you arrest him? I asked. Detective Morrison scheduled Connor's interview for the following Tuesday. She called to inform us that Connor would be coming in voluntarily with his attorney. David and I were not allowed in the interview room, but Detective Morrison said she would brief us immediately afterward. We waited in a conference room down the hall. Through the small window in the door, I could see Connor arrive at 10 a.m. sharp. He was not alone. His attorney was a man named Richard Stevens, mid-50s, expensive suit, leather briefcase, the kind of lawyer who charged $500 an hour. Connor must have spent serious money to retain him, money he claimed not to have when he said they could not afford to move out. David noticed my expression. Corporate defense attorney, he said quietly. That firm handles white-collar crime. Connor is taking this seriously. Good, I replied. So are we. We watched through the window as Connor and his attorney were led to the interview room. Connor looked confident, almost smug. He was wearing a suit clean-cut, the picture of a respectable young professional. Nothing like the man who had put food on a floor 11 days ago. 45 minutes passed, then an hour. David and I sat in silence, drinking bad coffee from the break room, waiting. Finally, Detective Morrison emerged. Her expression was neutral, but I caught a slight smile at the corner of her mouth. That was interesting, she said, closing the door behind her. Mr. Hayes brought a very expensive attorney who did exactly what expensive attorneys do. Tried to control the narrative, minimize his client's exposure, deny everything. What did Connor say? I asked. Initially, complete denial. Said the forum posts were not him, someone must have hacked his account. Said the business card situation was a misunderstanding, he was just trying to help drum up clients for you. Said the victims must be confused about who they gave money to. Standard deflection. Then Detective Morrison sat down, pulled out her notes. But then I asked him about his relationship history. Specifically about Keisha Reynolds in Houston and Tamara Williams in San Antonio. Both black women. Both from families with significant assets. Both relationships that ended badly with money missing. His attorney tried to shut it down immediately, said personal relationships were not relevant to the current allegations. But I pushed back. I said, Mr. Hayes, you have been engaged to 3 black women in 5 years, each time you moved in with their families, each time money went missing. Each time the relationship ended when financial discrepancies were discovered. That is not coincidence. That is pattern. What did he say? David asked. Connor got defensive. Said he could not help who he fell in love with. Said it was not his fault that the women he was attracted to happened to be from successful families. Then he made a mistake. What kind of mistake? Detective Morrison flipped through her notes. He said, and I quote, "Look, I dated who I dated. If they happen to have money, that is just how it worked out. I was trying to build relationships, build a future. These people are always so quick to think the worst. They assume everyone is out to get them just because of history or whatever. I was trying to help, trying to be part of their families, and they turned on me. These people?" I repeated slowly. He said, "These people." He did. And when I asked him to clarify what he meant by these people, his attorney stopped him from answering. But the damage was done. It was clear from context he was referring to black families. The racial component is no longer speculation. It is on record. Detective Morrison closed her notebook. His attorney knows he made a critical error. They left 20 minutes ago. Mr. Stevens looked like he wanted to strangle his own client. Connor, on the other hand, still seemed to think he was going to talk his way out of this. "Can you charge him?" David asked. "I am presenting the case to the district attorney tomorrow morning. With the statements from multiple victims, the physical evidence of fraud and forgery, the online posts, and now, Connor's own words establishing racial targeting, I am confident we will get an indictment. Multiple felony counts. I felt something shift inside me. Not satisfaction exactly, not revenge, just the solid weight of justice beginning to move forward. How long until charges are filed? I asked. If the DA agrees, which I believe she will, we could have an indictment within 2 weeks. Arrest warrant shortly after. Mr. Washington, you did the right thing coming forward. Connor Hayes is not going to hurt anyone else after this. Good, I said quietly. Because that is all I wanted, not revenge, just for him to stop. Sunday morning I arrived at First Baptist Church expecting a normal service. Instead, Pastor Williams met me at the door with a hand on my shoulder and unusual intensity in his eyes. Brother James, we are doing something different today. The deacons and I talked. We are holding a community meeting after service. About Connor Hayes, about protecting our families. We need you to speak. I hesitated. Pastor, I do not want to make this a spectacle. This is a legal matter. This is bigger than legal, he said firmly. This is about our community learning to recognize predators who target us specifically because of who we are. You speaking up could save another family from going through what you went through, what Minister Johnson went through, what those other families experienced. The church was packed. Over 200 people filled the pews. I recognized faces from 50 years of living in East Austin, families I had built homes for, business owners I had worked with, young people who had grown up knowing my name as someone who represented success, who proved a black man could build wealth in a system designed to prevent it. After the service, Pastor Williams stood at the pulpit. Brothers and sisters, we are going to do something important today. We are going to talk about financial predators who target our community. We are going to hear from Brother James Washington, a man who has been part of this church for 30 years, who built his business from nothing, and who recently discovered he was being systematically robbed by someone he trusted. I walked to the front. 40, maybe 50 families had stayed, filling the first several rows. I saw Minister Johnson in the third row nodding encouragement. I saw Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Simmons, Mr. Foster, the 3 clients Connor had defrauded. I saw young couples, old couples, families with children, all waiting to hear what I had to say. My name is James Washington, I began. Some of you know me. Some of you know my work. What you might not know is that for the past 4 years I have been the target of a con artist who specifically chose me because I am black, because I have property, and because he thought I would be too ashamed to fight back. I told them about Connor, about the forum posts discussing how to manipulate elderly black property owners, about the Thanksgiving incident, about the $80,000 loan, about the forged deed, about the 3 clients defrauded using my name. I showed them documents on the projection screen, evidence, facts, reality. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Mr. Thompson stood up. Brother James is not the only victim, he said. I am Leonard Thompson. Connor Hayes took $12,000 from me using Brother James's good name. I was ashamed to come forward because I thought I was a fool for being conned. But now I know we were not fools. We were targeted. There is a difference. Mrs. Simmons stood next. I am Patricia Simmons. Connor took $8,500 from me. He came to my church, shook my hand, called me sister, then robbed me. I stayed silent because I did not want people to think I was stupid. But silence protects predators. So I am speaking up now. Mr. Foster stood. Raymond Foster, $15,000. Connor specifically targeted me because I am a veteran with property. He studied us, learned our weaknesses, used our success against us. Then 3 other people stood. I did not recognize them at first. A woman in her 40s spoke. My name is Denise Carter. Connor Hayes dated my sister in Dallas 2 years ago. He convinced our family to invest in a business venture. We lost $22,000. We never reported it because we thought it was just a bad investment. But hearing Brother James's story, I realize now it was fraud, racial targeting. My sister is still traumatized. She blamed herself. But it was not her fault. A man in his 50s stood. Marcus Webb from San Antonio. Connor approached my cousin about a real estate deal. Said he specialized in helping black families build generational wealth. Took $17,000 and disappeared. My cousin moved away because the shame was so heavy. But I am here today to say it stops now. An elderly woman stood leaning on a cane. I am Gladys Robinson. Connor Hayes tried to convince my grandson to give him access to my bank accounts 2 years ago. Said he could help manage my money, make investments. My grandson got suspicious and sent him away. But hearing these stories, I realize we almost became victims too. Pastor Williams stood. 6 families, just in this room. 6 families targeted by the same man using the same tactics. How many more are out there who have not spoken up? I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the GoFundMe page that Brenda had helped me set up the night before. Brothers and sisters, I said. I created this fundraising page not for me, but for all of us. The title is Protect Black Wealth, Stop Financial Predators. Every dollar raised goes toward legal fees to prosecute Connor Hayes. It goes toward financial literacy classes at our community center. It goes toward helping victims recover. Within an hour, the GoFundMe had raised $8,000. People donated $20, $50, $100. Not because they knew me personally, but because they understood. This was about protecting each other. This was about saying no more. As people lined up to donate and sign witness statements for Detective Morrison, I noticed someone standing at the back of the church. Just inside the doorway, partially hidden behind a column. Aaliyah. She was watching everything, listening to the testimonies, seeing the community come together. Her face was troubled, conflicted. She did not come forward, did not speak, but she did not leave either. Our eyes met across the crowded church. I saw something in her expression I had not seen in years. Doubt. Not doubt about me. Doubt about Connor. The first crack in whatever spell he had over her. She turned and slipped out before I could reach her. But she had been there. She had heard. And that was enough for now. Pastor Williams put his hand on my shoulder. Brother James, you just started something powerful. This community is going to make sure Connor Hayes never hurts another black family again. Monday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but I knew immediately who it was. Dad, can we talk just us? Not Connor, not lawyers. Just you and me. I stared at that message for a full minute before responding. Where and when coffee shop on East 7th. The one near where you used to take me for hot chocolate when I was little. Tomorrow at 2, I remembered that place. Small black-owned, been there for 30 years. We used to go every Saturday morning when Aaliyah was young. Dorothy would sleep in, and Aaliyah and I would get hot chocolate and cinnamon rolls. Those were good days, simple days, before Connor, before everything got complicated. I will be there, I typed back. The next afternoon, I arrived 15 minutes early, chose a table by the window where I could see the street, ordered coffee black and waited. My hands were shaking slightly. I had not been alone with my daughter in over a year. Every interaction had been filtered through Connor's presence, his control, his manipulation. Aaliyah walked in at 2 o'clock exactly. She looked different, thinner, tired. Her natural hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. Not the polished, careful version Connor preferred. Just Aaliyah. She sat down across from me without ordering anything. We looked at each other for a long moment. I could see Dorothy in her face. Same cheekbones, same eyes. But there was something else now. Something wounded. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. You are my daughter. I will always come when you call, even after everything, even after everything. She looked down at her hands, twisted her wedding ring. I was at the church on Sunday, in the back. I heard what people said, about Connor, about the other families. I stayed silent. Let her talk. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did you really put food on the floor for you at Thanksgiving? Did Connor really do that? Yes. And you just left, without saying anything. What was I supposed to say? Aaliyah, your husband humiliated me in front of his friends, put scraps on a plastic plate and set it on the ground like I was a dog, and you stood there and said nothing. What words would have fixed that? She flinched. I did not know he was going to do that. I swear I did not know. But you did not stop him. You did not defend me. You did not even look at me. Tears started rolling down her face. I was scared of what? Of him, of what he would do if I went against him. Dad, Connor gets angry when I do not support him. He yells, he says things, he makes me feel like everything is my fault. That is abuse, Aaliyah. That is what abusive partners do. They make you afraid to stand up for yourself or anyone else. She wiped her eyes. When did it start? I have been trying to remember when things changed. When did I stop being me? I leaned forward. Tell me something. When is the last time you went to church? Your church, First Baptist, where you were baptized, where your mama is buried in the cemetery out back. She thought for a moment. 2 years maybe. Connor said the church was too political, too focused on race issues. He said we should find a new church that was more welcoming. You went to his church instead. That white evangelical church where nobody looks like you. She nodded slowly. When is the last time you wore your hair natural? When is the last time you went to a family reunion? When is the last time you spent time with your black friends without Connor present? Her face changed as realization dawned. He always had a reason. He would say my hair looked better, straight, more professional. He would say family reunions were drama and we should spend holidays with his friends instead. He would say my friends were a bad influence, too loud, too ghetto. He isolated you, I said gently, from your community, from your culture, from everyone who might have helped you see what he was doing. That is what abusers do. They cut you off from support systems so you only have them. Aaliyah put her face in her hands. Oh God, how did I not see it? Because you loved him, because you wanted to believe in the marriage, because he was good at making you think any problem was your fault, not his. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Dad, I am so sorry for Thanksgiving. For not believing you, for choosing him over you, for everything. Baby girl, you do not have to apologize to me. You are a victim too. Connor targeted you just like he targeted me. The difference is I am 77 years old with 50 years of experience spotting con artists. You are 38 and you trusted your husband. That is not your fault. But I let him hurt you. And now you see the truth. That is what matters. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She twisted her ring again, looked out the window. I do not know. I made vows, for better or worse. I am not supposed to just give up when things get hard. Worse is not supposed to include fraud and abuse and racism. Marriage vows do not mean you have to destroy yourself to save someone who is destroying you. I know that. I do. But Dad, I am scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of failing. Scared of what people will think. Scared that maybe Connor is right and I am the problem. Connor is not right. You are not the problem. And baby girl, you are never alone. You have me. You have this community. You have people who love you and want to see you free. She stood up suddenly. I need time. I need to think. I cannot just walk away without being sure. I understand. But Dad, I am glad we talked. I needed to hear this from you. I am here whenever you are ready, day or night. You call me and I will come. She walked out of the coffee shop and I watched her get into her car and drive away. She was not ready yet, not ready to leave Connor, not ready to admit the marriage was over, but the seed was planted, the doubt was there, and that was progress. Wednesday morning, David called with news. James, the eviction hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now, December 20th. But before that, we need to do a walkthrough of the property, document the condition, take photos, make sure Connor has not damaged anything out of spite. Can we do that legally, I asked. It is still technically their residence for another 2 weeks. Yes, with proper notice. I already sent Connor a letter. We are coming by Friday at 10 a.m. He can be present or not, his choice. But we are going in with a deputy to document everything. Friday morning, Deputy Hayes met us at the house, same officer who had been involved from the beginning. He was a white man in his 40s, professional fare, and increasingly disgusted by Connor's behavior as more evidence came to light. We pulled up to the Oak Street house at 9:55. Connor's car was not in the driveway. The curtains were drawn. The place looked abandoned even though the eviction date was still 2 weeks away. Something felt wrong immediately. Deputy Hayes knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, announced himself. Austin Police Department. We have legal right of entry for property inspection. Still no response. He used the key I had provided. The door swung open. The smell hit us first. Spray paint, strong and chemical. Then we saw it. The walls of the entryway were covered in graffiti, not random tags, not teenage vandalism, deliberate hateful racist slurs. The N-word in large letters 4 feet high, spray painted in black across the white wall. Below it, go back to Africa. Next to that, this is white man's property now. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what I was seeing. This was my house. The house I built with my own hands in 1994. The house where I raised Aaliyah. The house where Dorothy and I celebrated 30 years of marriage. And now it was desecrated with hate. Deputy Hayes pulled out his radio. I need a supervisor and a crime scene unit at 2847 Oak Street. Possible hate crime. Extensive property damage with racial components. David put his hand on my shoulder. James, do not touch anything. This is evidence. We moved further into the house. Every room told the same story. The living room walls had more slurs. Monkey, inferior. Welfare queen, even though I had never taken a dime of government assistance in my life, had built everything through my own labor and sweat. The kitchen was worse. Family photos had been torn down and burned in the sink. Pictures of Dorothy of Aaliyah as a child of my parents and grandparents. All destroyed. The ashes were still there, a deliberate message. In the master bedroom, the one Dorothy and I had shared for 20 years, someone had spray-painted "Old Nigger Die Here" across the wall above where our bed used to be. Below it, a crude drawing of a noose. I felt my legs go weak. Deputy Hayes grabbed my arm, steadied me. "Mr. Washington, I am so sorry. This is beyond property damage. This is terrorism. This is a clear hate crime." David was taking photos with his phone, documenting everything methodically. He moved from room to room, capturing every slur, every symbol, every act of destruction. His face was set in hard lines, professional anger radiating off him. "Who could do this?" I said quietly. "Who has this much hate?" "Connor Hayes," Deputy Hayes replied. "And we are going to prove it." A knock at the door interrupted us. Deputy Hayes went to answer. I heard a woman's voice, elderly, shaking. "Officer, I need to speak to you. I saw who did this. I have video." It was Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor. She was 78 years old, had lived next door for 40 years. A black woman who had watched the neighborhood change, who had seen me build this house, who had brought casseroles when Dorothy died. "Mrs. Patterson," I said, walking to the door. "What video?" She held up her phone with trembling hands. "James, I installed a security camera 6 months ago after there were some break-ins in the neighborhood. It faces my driveway, but it catches part of your front yard too. Last night around 2 in the morning I heard noises, looked at my camera feed. I saw him, saw who Deputy Hayes asked. Connor Hayes, that white boy who married Aaliyah. I watched him spray paint those walls through your windows, watched him laugh while he did it. I called 911, but by the time officers arrived he was gone. But I have it all recorded. Every second. Can you send that video to me?" Deputy Hayes asked, pulling out a business card. "Already did. Sent it to the police department at 2:30 this morning. But nobody called me back." Deputy Hayes looked angry. "I will follow up on that immediately. Mrs. Patterson, this video is critical evidence. Thank you for being vigilant." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "James, I am so sorry. I am sorry this happened to your beautiful home. Your Dorothy would be heartbroken." "Dorothy would be angry," I said, "and she would tell me to fight back, which is exactly what I'm going to do." Mrs. Patterson nodded. "I will testify. I will show that video in court. That boy needs to pay for what he has done, not just to you, but to all of us. When he spray-painted that word on your wall, he was attacking every black person who ever built something in this neighborhood." David made a phone call. "Detective Morrison David Porter. We are at the Oak Street property. You need to see this. And we have video evidence of Connor Hayes committing the vandalism. Yes, racial slurs, extensive damage, terroristic threats. We need hate crime charges added immediately." He listened for a moment, then said, "Good, we will wait here for you." Deputy Hayes was writing up his report, photographing everything from multiple angles. "This changes everything, Mr. Washington. Property damage is one thing. But hate crimes, terroristic threats, this moves Connor into a whole different category of offender. The DA is going to throw the book at him." I looked around at the destruction, the hate, the deliberate attempt to terrorize me to make me feel unsafe in my own home. Connor had miscalculated. He thought this would break me. Instead, it had given me ironclad evidence of his true nature. "How much does it cost to fix this?" I asked David. "Probably $15,000 to $20,000, new drywall painting repairs, but James' insurance will cover most of it, and Connor will be liable for every penny." "Good," I said, because I want him to pay. For all of it. December 20th arrived cold and bright. The Travis County Justice Court was busy with holiday season disputes. Small claims, traffic violations, landlord-tenant cases. Our case was scheduled for 10 a.m. in courtroom 3. David and I arrived early. He carried 2 briefcases full of documentation, evidence organized in labeled folders, property deeds, promissory notes, bank statements, police reports, photos of the vandalism, Mrs. Patterson's video, witness statements from the victims Connor had defrauded, everything we needed to prove our case beyond any doubt. Judge Maria Rodriguez presided over courtroom 3. She was a Latina woman in her mid-50s, appointed to the bench 8 years ago, known for being fair but firm. No nonsense. She had seen every kind of landlord-tenant dispute imaginable, but I suspected she had never seen anything quite like what Connor Hayes had done. The courtroom was small. Wooden benches for observers, a table for the plaintiff, a table for the defendant. Judge Rodriguez's bench elevated at the front, the Texas flag and American flag flanking her. Everything official and formal. Connor arrived at 9:50 with his attorney Richard Stevens. Connor wore a dark suit, white shirt, conservative tie, the picture of respectability. He did not look at me as he took his seat at the defendant's table. But then I noticed something. Aaliyah was not with him. She was not at his table. She was not sitting behind him in the gallery. She was nowhere to be seen. "All rise," the bailiff announced, the Honorable Judge Maria Rodriguez presiding. We stood as Judge Rodriguez entered and took her seat. She looked at the case file, then at both parties. "This is case number 2024-4782 Washington versus Hayes. Eviction for non-payment of rent and violation of tenancy at will. Mr. Porter, you represent the plaintiff." "Yes, Your Honor." David stood. "David Porter for James Washington." "Mr. Stevens, you represent the defendants." "Yes, Your Honor." "Richard Stevens for Connor and Aaliyah Hayes." Judge Rodriguez looked around. "Where is Mrs. Hayes?" Stevens hesitated. "She is not present, Your Honor." "Is she aware of this hearing?" "Yes, Your Honor. She chose not to attend." "Interesting." Judge Rodriguez made a note. "Proceed with opening statements." "Mr. Porter." David stood and addressed the court. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward eviction case on its face. James Washington owns the property at 2847 Oak Street free and clear. He has owned it for 30 years. The defendants have lived there rent-free for 4 years with no lease agreement. Mr. Washington provided notice to vacate as required by Texas law. The defendants have refused to leave. Therefore, we seek immediate eviction. However, Judge Rodriguez continued, this case involves much more than simple eviction. The defendant, Connor Hayes, has engaged in a pattern of criminal behavior targeting my client and the black community. He has committed fraud, forgery, and hate crimes. He has vandalized the property with racial slurs. He has threatened and harassed my client. We have extensive documentation of all of this. David placed the first folder on the evidence table. We have property deeds proving sole ownership. We have financial records showing 4 years of rent-free occupancy valued at $72,000. We have a promissory note for $80,000 that has never been repaid. We have police reports documenting fraud against 3 elderly black clients. We have a forged deed attempt, and we have video evidence of the defendant spray painting racial slurs on the property walls. Judge Rodriguez looked at Stevens. "Your response, Counselor." Stevens stood. "Your Honor, my client disputes the characterization of these events. This is a family dispute that has been blown out of proportion. Mr. Hayes and his wife cared for Mr. Washington after his wife died. They maintained the property. They were a source of support and companionship. A misunderstanding occurred at Thanksgiving. Words were said in anger. But this does not justify eviction or the criminal allegations being made." Judge Rodriguez held up a hand. "Mr. Stevens, I have reviewed the police reports. I have seen photos of racial slurs spray painted on the property walls. This is not a simple family dispute. Do you dispute that your client spray painted those walls?" Stevens hesitated. "We dispute the context, Your Honor. My client was under extreme emotional distress." "That is not an answer to my question. Did your client spray paint racial slurs on Mr. Washington's property walls?" Before Stevens could respond, Connor stood up. His face was red, his jaw tight. "Your Honor." "Can I speak, Mr. Hayes?" Stevens said urgently. "I advise you to sit down and let me handle this." "No." Connor's voice was loud, angry. "I am tired of this. I am tired of being painted as the villain when I gave 4 years of my life to that family." Judge Rodriguez leaned forward. "Mr. Hayes, you may address the court. But I warn you, anything you say is on the record." "Good. Let it be on the record." Connor turned to face me. "I moved into that house because Aaliyah begged me to. Her father was lonely and depressed. She was worried about him. So I put my life on hold. I lived in a house that was not mine. I dealt with his rules, his expectations, his constant presence." Stevens was trying to pull Connor back down to his seat, but Connor shook him off. "I asked for that $80,000 because he offered it. He said he wanted to invest in my future, in our future. It was not a loan, it was a gift. And when my business failed, he acted like I stole from him. David stood. Your Honor, we have the signed promissory note clearly stating it was a loan with repayment terms. Connor ignored him. And yes, I made mistakes. I got frustrated. 4 years of living under his roof, being judged, being made to feel like I owed him something just for existing in that house. At Thanksgiving, I was angry. I wanted him to feel what I felt. Small. Unimportant. Like he did not belong. Mr. Hayes. Judge Rodriguez said, her voice sharp. You admit you deliberately humiliated the plaintiff. I earned that house. Connor's voice rose. 4 years. 4 years dealing with her people, dealing with the judgment, the church ladies, the family friends who all looked at me like I was not good enough. I dealt with all of it, and this is how I get repaid. With eviction papers. Her people, Judge Rodriguez repeated. Can you clarify what you mean by that? You know what I mean. Connor was breathing hard now, too angry to stop. The black community, always talking about struggle and history and respecting elders. I showed respect. I gave 4 years. And it was never enough. The courtroom went silent. Even Stevens looked like he wanted to disappear. So yes, Judge Rodriguez continued, her voice cold. You admit to targeting Mr. Washington because he is black. I admit to being tired of being the bad guy. Connor turned to me. You act like you are so noble, like you built everything yourself, but you are just a bitter old man who cannot let go. That house should be mine. I put in the time. I earned it. David stood again. Your Honor, may I present video evidence at this time? Proceed. David set up a laptop connected to a screen visible to the entire courtroom. Mrs. Patterson's video began to play. The timestamp showed 2:17 a.m. The camera angle showed my front yard and part of the house. On screen, Connor approached with 2 cans of spray paint. He looked around, checking if anyone was watching, then went to the front window. Through the window, you could see him spraying the interior walls. The angle was not perfect, but you could see his arm moving, see the paint, can see him step back to admire his work. Then he laughed. The audio was faint but clear enough. That will teach the old man a lesson, he said to someone off camera. Maybe now he will understand his place. Judge Rodriguez watched the entire 3-minute video in silence. When it ended, she looked at Connor. Mr. Hayes, do you deny that this video shows you vandalizing Mr. Washington's property with racial slurs? Connor said nothing. His face had gone pale. Let the record show the defendant does not deny the evidence. Judge Rodriguez made notes. Mr. C. Stevens, does your client have anything else to say? Stevens shook his head. No, Your Honor, and I apologize to the court for my client's outburst. Judge Rodriguez closed the case file. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. The defendants are ordered to vacate the property at 2847 Oak Street within 14 days. All personal belongings must be removed. The property must be left in clean condition, though, given the defendant's vandalism, that ship has sailed. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. The video evidence and the defendant's own statements in this courtroom establish hate crime, vandalism, fraud, and elder abuse. Mr. Hayes, you will be hearing from law enforcement shortly. Regarding the promissory note, that is a separate civil matter that will be handled in district court. But let me be clear. You owe Mr. Washington $80,000 plus interest. You will pay it. Judge Rodriguez looked at Connor with open disgust. Mr. Hayes, in 20 years on the bench, I have seen many landlord-tenant disputes. I have never seen someone so brazenly admit to racial targeting and hate crimes in open court. You targeted Mr. Washington because of his race. You exploited his grief. You vandalized his property with slurs. And then you came into my courtroom and admitted it all because you were too arrogant to keep your mouth shut. She slammed her gavel. 14 days. If you are not out by January 3rd, the sheriff will remove you forcibly. Court adjourned. As everyone stood, I heard the courtroom door open behind me. I turned. Aaliyah walked in. She was not wearing her wedding ring. Her hair was in natural curls, not the straightened style Connor preferred. She looked tired but determined. She walked past Connor without looking at him, walked past his attorney, walked straight to where I was standing and took the seat next to me. Connor stared at her, shocked. Aaliyah, what are you doing? She looked at him for the first time. I am sitting with my father, where I should have been all along. You cannot do this. You are my wife. I am his daughter, and that comes first. It should have always come first. Stevens pulled Connor toward the door. Mr. Hayes, we need to leave, now. But Connor could not stop staring at Aaliyah. You are choosing him. After everything I have done for you, everything you have done to me, Aaliyah corrected. I heard what you said in there, about my people, about earning the house, about making my father feel small. I heard all of it, Connor, and I am done. I am filing for divorce. Connor's face went from shock to rage. You will regret this. Both of you. This is not over. Deputy Hayes stepped forward. Mr. Hayes, you need to leave the courthouse now, and I suggest you avoid any contact with Mr. Washington or Mrs. Hayes. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Connor left his expensive lawyer trailing behind him. The courtroom emptied. Aaliyah and I sat there in silence for a long moment. Then she said quietly, Daddy, I am so sorry. For all of it. For Thanksgiving. For not seeing who he really was. For choosing him over you. I put my arm around her shoulders. Baby girl, you are here now. That is what matters. She leaned into me and cried. The kind of crying that comes from 4 years of holding everything in. 4 years of being controlled and manipulated and made to feel like she was wrong for wanting to be herself. I am going to need a place to stay, she said between sobs. Just until I figure things out. You can stay with me as long as you need. We will figure it out together. Thank you, Daddy. We walked out of the courthouse together into the cold December sun. My daughter was coming home. Connor had 14 days to get out, and justice finally was beginning to be served. Outside the courthouse, news cameras were waiting. Word had spread about the case. A black elder being targeted by a white son-in-law. A pattern of fraud against black families. The local news stations had picked up the story. 3 camera crews stood on the courthouse steps, reporters with microphones ready. Connor emerged from the building first, Stevens trying to shield him from the cameras. But the reporters moved in quickly. Mr. Hayes, can you comment on the judge's ruling? Mr. Hayes, is it true you spray-painted racial slurs on your father-in-law's property? Mr. Hayes, how do you respond to allegations of targeting black families? Connor stopped, pulled away from Stevens. His face was red with rage. You want to comment? Fine. This whole thing is a witch hunt. An old man who cannot let go of his property is using the race card to destroy me. I did nothing wrong. I helped that family for 4 years, and this is how they repay me. The judge saw video evidence of you vandalizing the property, a reporter pressed. That video is taken out of context. I was upset, I made mistakes, but I am not a racist. I married a black woman, for God's sake. How can I be racist? You called black people her people in court, another reporter said. Connor's jaw tightened. I was angry. People say things when they are angry. It does not mean anything. You also admitted to deliberately humiliating Mr. Washington at Thanksgiving, because he deserved it. Connor's voice rose. That old He stopped himself, caught the word before it fully left his mouth. But the cameras had caught everything. The near slip, the rage in his face, the contempt in his eyes. Stevens grabbed his arm. Connor, stop talking. We are leaving now. But Connor shook him off again. No, I am tired of being silent. These people think they can ruin my life with their accusations. Well, I am fighting back. I am going to sue for defamation. I am going to make sure everyone knows what a vindictive, bitter old man James Washington really is. He is just another... Connor, a deep voice called out. That is enough. Everyone turned. A white man in his 60s was walking up the courthouse steps. Tall, gray hair, expensive coat. He had Connor's features. Same build, same jawline. But his expression was heavy with shame and disappointment. Dad, Connor said, his voice suddenly uncertain. What are you doing here? Stopping you from making this worse than it already is? The man walked past the cameras, past the reporters, and stood directly in front of Connor. Go to your car. Wait for me there. We are going to talk. Now. Connor looked like he wanted to argue, but something in his father's expression made him back down. He walked to the parking lot, Stevens following. The older man turned to me. I was standing on the courthouse steps with Aaliyah and David watching the whole scene unfold. Mr. Washington, he said, extending his hand. My name is Marcus Hayes. I am Connor's father. Can we speak privately? David started to object, but I held up a hand. It is okay. Let us hear what he has to say. We moved away from the cameras to a quiet corner of the courthouse grounds. Marcus Hayes looked at me with genuine pain in his eyes. Mr. Washington, I owe you an apology, not on behalf of my son because he needs to apologize for himself and mean it, but as his father, I am deeply sorry for what he has done to you and your family. Why are you here? I asked. Because I have been following this case. I hired a private investigator months ago when I heard Connor was engaged again. To another black woman, the third one. I needed to know if my suspicions were correct. What suspicions? Marcus took a deep breath. Mr. Washington, my son's racism, his targeting of black families, it is not random. It is personal. It is about me. I do not understand. 5 years ago, my wife Connor's mother and I divorced. The marriage had been troubled for years. After the divorce was final, I met someone, a woman named Angela. She is black, a professor at the University of Texas. Brilliant, kind, everything I had been missing in my first marriage. We fell in love. We got married 2 years ago. Aaliyah spoke up. Connor's mother is white. Yes. And Connor could not handle the divorce, could not handle seeing his mother struggle. But more than that, he could not handle me marrying a black woman. He saw it as a betrayal, not just of his mother, but of his whiteness, his identity, everything he thought our family stood for. Marcus's voice shook. Angela tried to build a relationship with Connor, invited him to dinners, sent birthday cards, tried to be a stepmother. He rejected her completely, called her horrible names, accused me of having a midlife crisis, said I was throwing away my legacy for some. He used a word I will not repeat. He said the N-word. I said quietly, yes, to his own stepmother, to the woman I love. Angela was devastated. I told Connor he was not welcome in our home until he changed his attitude. That was 3 years ago. We have barely spoken since. And that is when he started dating black women. David said, understanding dawning. Exactly. Marcus nodded. Connor's therapist. I forced him into therapy after his outburst at Angela said he was engaging in what is called reactive racism. He targets black families as a way to punish me, to prove that black people are untrustworthy, that my marriage to Angela is a mistake. Every time he defrauds a black family, every time he causes pain in a black community, he is sending me a message. See, Dad. See what they are really like. See what a mistake you made. That is sick, Aaliyah whispered. It is psychological projection and racial hatred combined. Marcus looked at me. Mr. Washington, you and your family became collateral damage in my son's vendetta against me and Angela. He chose Aaliyah because she is successful and black because hurting her would prove his point. He targeted your property and your money because destroying black wealth is his way of saying black people do not deserve success. He is using us to get back at you, I said. Yes, and I am so deeply sorry. I should have warned people, should have stopped him years ago, but I hoped he would change. I was wrong. January 3rd arrived, the 14-day deadline. I drove to the Oak Street house at dawn with David and Deputy Hayes. We expected resistance. We expected drama. We expected Connor to make one last stand. Instead, we found an empty house and total destruction. Connor had left during the night. No forwarding address, no goodbye, just damage. Deliberate, calculated damage designed to hurt me one more time. Every window in the house was shattered. Glass covered the floors. The kitchen cabinets had been ripped off the walls, hinges bent and broken. In the bathroom, the toilets were smashed with a hammer. The sinks torn from the walls, water damage spreading across the floors. The hardwood floors I had installed myself 30 years ago were gouged with deep scratches as if someone had dragged metal tools across them deliberately. Holes punched in every wall. The furnace vents torn out. The ceiling fans ripped down, wires hanging exposed and dangerous. In what used to be the master bedroom, Connor had spray-painted one final message. You win, old man, but you will die alone in this piece of shithouse. David walked through each room, photographing everything, documenting the destruction for the insurance claim and the criminal case. His estimate was $15,000 minimum to repair everything. Maybe more once contractors started opening walls and finding hidden damage. I stood in the living room looking at what was left of the house I had built. The house where Dorothy and I had raised our daughter. The house where we had celebrated birthdays and anniversaries and quiet Sunday mornings. All of it violated, all of it damaged. But I was not broken. Connor wanted me to feel destroyed. Instead, I felt determined. I pulled out my phone and called Pastor Williams. "Pastor, I need help. The house needs major repairs before I can do anything with it. I cannot afford to hire professional contractors for everything. Can the church help, Brother James?" he said immediately. "Say no more. I will make calls. We will be there this afternoon." By 2 o'clock, 20 people from First Baptist had arrived. Men with tools, women with cleaning supplies, young people ready to haul debris. They came in trucks and vans bringing ladders and paint and determination. Minister Johnson showed up with his construction crew. Mr. Thompson brought supplies from his hardware store. Mrs. Simmons organized a food station, making sure everyone had lunch. Mr. Foster, the veteran, brought his military precision to organizing work teams. Pastor Williams stood in the middle of the chaos and prayed, "Lord, we are here to rebuild what hate tried to destroy. We are here to restore what racism tried to break. We are here to show that community is stronger than cruelty. Bless these hands. Bless this work. Bless this house. Amen." For 3 days, the church community worked. They replaced windows, patched walls, repaired plumbing, sanded floors, painted over slurs, transformed destruction back into a home. Aaliyah worked alongside everyone, painting walls, cleaning debris, reclaiming her childhood home from the man who had tried to take it. She was quiet but focused, pouring her anger and grief into productive labor. On the 3rd day, as the sun set, we stood back and looked at what we had accomplished. The house was not perfect. You could still see some of the damage if you looked closely. But it was whole again. Livable. Clean. No more hate on the walls, no more destruction visible. Pastor Williams put his arm around my shoulders. "This is what we do, Brother James. We build. They tear down, we build back up. That is our history. That is our strength." 6 weeks after the eviction hearing, the criminal trial began. The Travis County District Court was far more formal than the Justice Court where we had fought the eviction. Larger courtroom, more security, a jury box with 12 seats. This was serious. The prosecutor was District Attorney Carmen Williams, a black woman in her early 50s with 20 years of experience putting criminals behind bars. She had built her career prosecuting hate crimes and financial fraud. She had a reputation for being thorough, aggressive, and unbeatable when she had solid evidence. We had very solid evidence. D.A. Williams wore a navy suit and carried herself with quiet authority. When she spoke, people listened. During our preparation meetings, she had been clear about her strategy. "Mr. Washington," she had said, "this case is about more than Connor Hayes. It is about sending a message. Targeting black families, exploiting racial dynamics for financial gain, committing hate crimes, this cannot be tolerated. I am going to make sure the jury understands the full scope of what Connor did, and I am going to make sure he pays for all of it." The trial was expected to last 4 days. Connor sat at the defense table with Richard Stevens and a second attorney, a woman named Patricia Morrison, who specialized in hate crime defense. They had brought in reinforcements. That told me they knew how bad this looked. Judge Thomas Bradford presided. White man, mid-60s, appointed by a Republican governor but known for being fair. He had reviewed all the pretrial motions and ruled in our favor on most of them. The evidence would be admitted, the witnesses would testify, the video would be shown. Everything we needed to prove Connor's guilt would be presented to the jury. The jury was diverse. 4 black jurors, 3 Hispanic, 3 white, 2 Asian, 7 women, 5 men, ages ranging from mid-20s to late 60s. D.A. Williams had been strategic during selection, looking for people who understood systemic racism, who had experience with financial fraud, who would not be swayed by Connor's attempts to play victim. Day 1 began with opening statements. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," D.A. Williams said, standing before them with confidence, "over the next 4 days, you are going to hear about a man who made a career out of targeting black families. Connor Hayes did not randomly commit crimes. He systematically identified successful black families, studied their vulnerabilities, and exploited them for financial gain. He defrauded elderly clients. He forged legal documents. He vandalized property with racial slurs. And he did all of this because he believed black people were easy targets who would be too ashamed to fight back. He was wrong, and you are going to hold him accountable." Minister Robert Johnson took the stand on the afternoon of day 1. He was 72 years old, had been a pastor for 45 years, wore his Sunday best suit, and carried a worn Bible. He placed his hand on another Bible and swore to tell the truth. D.A. Williams approached him gently. "Minister Johnson, can you tell the jury how you met Connor Hayes?" Minister Johnson nodded. 3 years ago, my daughter Nicole brought him to church. He seemed like a nice young man, respectful, interested in our community. He started attending services regularly, had Sunday dinner with our family. He and Nicole got engaged after 6 months. And did Mr. Hayes ask you for money? Yes, ma'am. He came to me with a business proposal, said he wanted to start a nonprofit to help black youth with technology education. Showed me incorporation papers, a business plan, letters of support from community organizations. It all looked legitimate. He asked for $40,000 as seed money. Did you give him the money? I did. Minister Johnson's voice was heavy. I wrote him a check. Thought I was investing in my community's future. Thought I was helping young people who looked like my grandchildren get opportunities I never had. What happened to that nonprofit? It never existed. The incorporation papers were fake. The business plan was plagiarized from another organization. The letters of support were fabricated. Connor took my $40,000 and spent it on himself. Cars, clothes, trips. While he was engaged to my daughter, he had another relationship with a white woman in Dallas. Nicole found out 6 months later. The engagement ended. The money was gone. Did you report this to police at the time? No, ma'am. Minister Johnson looked down. I was ashamed. A pastor's supposed to have wisdom and discernment, and I got conned. I told myself it was an expensive lesson. But I should have reported it. If I had, maybe he would not have been able to hurt Mr. Washington and all those other families. Minister Johnson D.A. Williams said softly, "You were a victim. The shame belongs to Connor Hayes, not to you. Thank you, ma'am. But I am here now to make sure he cannot hurt anyone else." Connor's attorneys declined to cross-examine Minister Johnson. What could they say? His testimony was clear, credible, and devastating. Day 2 brought the testimony everyone had been waiting for. Aaliyah Washington Hayes took the stand. She had filed for divorce 2 weeks after the eviction hearing. The papers were served. Connor had not contested. The divorce would be final in another month. But for now, she was still legally Aaliyah Hayes, still technically his wife, and she was about to testify against him. Aaliyah wore a simple black dress, her natural hair in twists, no makeup. She looked small in the witness chair, but her voice was steady. Mrs. Hayes de Williams began. Can you tell the jury about your relationship with Connor Hayes? We met 4 years ago at a networking event. He was charming, attentive, said all the right things. We dated for 6 months before he proposed. I thought I had found someone who loved me, who wanted to build a life together. When did you start to notice problems? About a year into the marriage. Small things at first. He would criticize my hair when I wore it natural, said it looked unprofessional, said clients would take me more seriously if I straightened it. So I did. I straightened my hair for 3 years because he convinced me my natural hair was a problem. What else did he criticize? Everything that connected me to my black identity. He did not like me going to First Baptist Church, said it was too focused on race issues, too political. He wanted us to go to his church, a white evangelical church, where I was one of maybe 3 black people in a congregation of 500. I felt isolated there, but he said I was being too sensitive. He did not like my friends, said they were loud, ghetto, a bad influence. One by one, I stopped spending time with the black women who had been my support system since childhood. He did not like family reunions, said they were too much drama. So I stopped going. I missed 3 years of family gatherings because Connor convinced me my family was toxic. Did he control your finances? Yes. He convinced me to quit my accounting job. Said we did not need 2 incomes, that I should focus on supporting his business ventures. I thought he was being traditional protective. I did not realize he was isolating me. Without my own income, I became completely dependent on him. He controlled when I could spend money, what I could buy, where I could go. Mrs. Hayes de Williams said, "Did you witness the Thanksgiving incident where your father was humiliated?" Aaliyah's voice broke slightly. Yes, I was there. I watched Connor put food scraps on a plastic plate and set it on the floor. I watched my father, a man who raised me alone after my mother died, stand there and take that humiliation. And I said nothing. I did nothing. Because I was terrified of Connor's anger if I went against him. Why were you terrified? Because he had trained me to be afraid. If I disagreed with him, he would yell, slam doors, give me the silent treatment for days. He would say things like, "You are just like your family, always playing the victim, always making everything about race." He made me feel like my perceptions were wrong, like my feelings did not matter, like I was crazy for thinking he was being cruel. Aaliyah wiped tears from her eyes but continued. For 4 years, I lost myself. I stopped being Aaliyah Washington and became whoever Connor needed me to be. A version of me that was acceptable to him. A version that did not challenge him, did not stand up for my father, did not connect to my community or my culture. He erased me piece by piece, and I let him, because I thought that was what love required. When did you realize what was happening? At the eviction hearing. I heard him say he earned the house because he dealt with her people for 4 years. My people. He meant black people. He meant me. In that moment I understood. He did not marry me despite me being black. He married me because I was black. Because I was a tool he could use to hurt my father and prove some sick point to his own father about interracial relationships being failures. D.A. Williams let that statement hang in the air. No further questions, Your Honor. Connor's attorney, Patricia Morrison, stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Hayes, is it not true that you benefited financially from living rent-free for 4 years? Aaliyah looked at her steadily. I benefited from my father's generosity. Connor exploited it. But you did not object to living rent-free. I did not know we were supposed to pay rent. My father never asked for it. I assumed it was a family arrangement while Connor got his business off the ground. You also did not object when Connor asked your father for $80,000. Connor told me it was a gift, not a loan. I found out about the promissory note during the eviction proceedings. Morrison tried a different angle. Is it not true that you are testifying against your husband to get revenge for him leaving you? Aaliyah's voice was firm. I am testifying because what he did was wrong. He defrauded my father. He defrauded other families. He committed hate crimes. My personal feelings are irrelevant. The evidence speaks for itself. Morrison had no response. She sat down. On day 3, the jury watched Mrs. Patterson's security camera video. The courtroom lights dimmed. The screen showed a clear view of my front yard and the house windows. 2:17 a.m. Connor's car pulled up. He got out carrying 2 cans of spray paint. He looked around checking for witnesses, then approached the house. Through the windows, you could see him spray painting the interior walls. The video quality was surprisingly good. You could see his face, see the concentration, see the deliberate movements. Then he stepped back and laughed. The audio was faint, but the court had enhanced it. Connor's voice came through clearly. That will teach the old man a lesson. Maybe now he will understand his place. He took photos with his phone, admiring his work. A second person appeared on camera. A white man I did not recognize. He handed Connor another spray paint can. They both laughed. The second man said something inaudible. Connor replied, "He thinks he is so smart. Built all this wealth. Well, let us see how smart he feels when he sees what I did to his precious house." They spray painted for another 10 minutes, then left. The video timestamp showed 2:43 a.m. when Connor's car drove away. The jury watched in silence. Several jurors looked disgusted. One woman shook her head. A black man in the front row had tears in his eyes. D.A. Williams played a second video, this one taken by a bystander during the courthouse confrontation. It showed Connor about to say the N-word before catching himself, showed his rage, showed his contempt, showed exactly who he was when he thought no one important was watching. Connor's defense tried to argue context, stress, misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming. His own words, his own actions, caught on camera, testified to by multiple witnesses. Richard Stevens gave a closing argument about how Connor was young, made mistakes, was under pressure. How this was not really about race, but about family conflict blown out of proportion. How Connor deserved a second chance. The jury did not buy it. They deliberated for 3 hours. We stood as they filed back in. The forewoman, a black woman in her 50s, held the verdict form. On the charge of wire fraud, how do you find guilty? On the charge of forgery, how do you find guilty? On the charge of theft by deception, how do you find guilty? On the charge of elder financial abuse, how do you find guilty? On the charge of hate crime vandalism, how do you find guilty? 5 guilty verdicts. Connor's face went pale. His attorneys looked grim. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Judge Bradford's courtroom was packed for sentencing day. All the victims were present. Minister Johnson, Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Simmons, Mr. Foster, the families from Houston and San Antonio. Marcus Hayes was there too, sitting in the back looking broken. D.A. Williams presented the sentencing recommendation. Your Honor, Connor Hayes engaged in a calculated, systematic pattern of targeting black families for financial exploitation. He stole over $150,000 from multiple victims. He committed hate crimes. He showed no remorse. The guidelines suggest 3 years minimum. We are asking for 5 years in state prison with hate crime enhancements, plus full restitution to all victims. Judge Bradford reviewed his notes. Mr. Hayes, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Connor stood. His voice was quiet. I made mistakes. I am sorry for the pain I caused. Judge Bradford cut him off. Mr. Hayes, you were convicted by a jury of your peers. The evidence against you was overwhelming. You targeted elderly black families specifically because of their race. You exploited trust within communities. You vandalized property with racial slurs. You showed contempt for the very people who welcomed you into their families. The judge continued. This court sees hate crime cases regularly. But the calculated nature of your crimes, the pattern over multiple years, the complete lack of genuine remorse, this is among the worst I have encountered. You are not sorry for what you did. You are sorry you got caught. Connor Hayes. I sentence you to 5 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. You will serve a minimum of 85% before parole eligibility due to the violent nature of the hate crime enhancements. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $152,000 to be distributed among all victims. You will pay $500 per month starting immediately upon release. Failure to pay is a parole violation resulting in reincarceration. Furthermore, upon release, you will be registered as a financial crimes offender. You will be prohibited from working in any position involving financial management or access to elderly clients. You will complete 500 hours of community service in predominantly black neighborhoods under supervision. Judge Bradford slammed his gavel. Bailiff remanded the defendant into custody. Connor was led away in handcuffs. He did not look back. Did not look at Aaliyah. Did not look at me. Just walked out of the courtroom and into a prison cell where he would spend the next 5 years. Summer arrived warm and bright in Austin. 6 months had passed since Connor was sentenced. 6 months of healing, rebuilding, and transformation. The house on Oak Street looked different now. The exterior had been repainted a warm cream color with green trim, Dorothy's favorite colors. A new sign hung above the front door, professionally made with elegant lettering. Dorothy Washington Community Center, established 2025. I stood in front of that sign on a Saturday morning in June, looking at what we had created. The house where I had raised my daughter, where Connor had tried to destroy everything I built, was now something bigger than any of us. It was legacy. Inside, the rooms had been transformed. The living room where Connor's friends had sat around my table now held rows of chairs facing a projection screen. This was our classroom. The dining room where the Thanksgiving incident happened was now a conference space with a large table for group discussions. The kitchen had been expanded, turned into a teaching space for financial planning workshops. The bedrooms upstairs had become offices, one for me, one for Aaliyah, one for Brenda Matthews, who volunteered 3 days a week, and one that we left as a memorial to Dorothy, filled with photos of her life, her accomplishments, her love for community. The backyard had been landscaped with a garden and seating area. A memorial stone sat near Dorothy's favorite oak tree, Dorothy Washington, 1960 to 2019. She taught us to build to give and to stand strong. Her legacy continues. Pastor Williams had helped secure nonprofit status for the center. David Porter handled all the legal paperwork pro bono. The GoFundMe campaign had raised over $40,000. The church had donated another $15,000. Local black-owned businesses contributed supplies and services. But the real heart of the center was not the physical space. It was what we did there. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, we held financial literacy classes, teaching black families how to protect their wealth, how to recognize predatory schemes, how to document everything, how to spot the warning signs of financial exploitation. The classes covered practical skills, how to read contracts, how to verify business credentials, how to do background checks on business partners, how to set up trusts and wills to protect generational wealth, how to recognize emotional manipulation tactics. Brenda Matthews taught a class on bookkeeping and financial red flags. She would tell her own story of discovering Connor's fraud, teaching people what to look for in their own situations. Minister Johnson taught a class on spiritual discernment and protecting yourself from con artists who use religion as cover. He was brutally honest about his own experience about how shame had kept him silent about why speaking up matters. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Simmons, and Mr. Foster all volunteered sharing their stories, teaching others to not be ashamed of being targeted. "You are not stupid for being conned," Mr. Thompson would say. "You are trusting. Predators exploit trust. That is on them, not you." We also offered free legal clinics twice a month. David Porter and 3 other black attorneys volunteered their time reviewing contracts, answering questions, helping families protect their assets. The center became a gathering place, not just for classes, but for community. Young people came to learn from elders. Elders came to share wisdom. Families came to connect to support each other to build networks of protection. And Aaliyah was at the heart of it all. My daughter had transformed in 6 months. The woman who had straightened her hair for 3 years to please Connor now wore her natural hair in beautiful locks that reached her shoulders. She had regained weight she had lost during the marriage. Her smile came easier now. Her laugh was genuine. She had taken her old job back at the accounting firm, but only part-time. The rest of her time was spent at the center, running the financial literacy programs, counseling other women who had been in controlling relationships, teaching people how to rebuild after financial abuse. She had started therapy immediately after the trial. Twice a week, sessions with a black woman therapist who specialized in domestic abuse and racial trauma. The healing was not linear. Some days were hard, but she was doing the work. The divorce had been finalized in April. She kept the Washington name, dropped Hayes completely. "I am Aaliyah Washington," she told me. "I should never have been anything else." She was dating again, slowly, carefully. A brother from church named Marcus, ironically the same name as Connor's father, but this Marcus was nothing like Connor. Patient, kind, respectful of her boundaries, no pressure, just steady presence. The grand opening of the Dorothy Washington Community Center was scheduled for June 15th. We had been preparing for weeks. Invitations sent to everyone who had been part of the journey. Victims, church members, community leaders, local media. We wanted the world to see what we had built from the ashes of Connor's destruction. The day arrived sunny and perfect. Over 200 people gathered in the backyard. We had set up a podium, chairs, a sound system. News cameras from 3 local stations, a reporter from the Austin American-Statesman. This was news. This was hope. This was what healing looked like. Pastor Williams opened with a prayer. Then he introduced me. I walked to the podium feeling 77 years old in my bones, but young in my spirit. I looked out at the faces, black, brown, white, every age, united in purpose. "My name is James Washington," I began. "I am 77 years old. I built my first house when I was 22 in 1970, when banks would not loan money to black contractors. I built my business through 50 years of hard work, discrimination, setbacks, and determination. I built wealth not because the system supported me, but in spite of the system trying to stop me. Last Thanksgiving, a man tried to take all of that away. He tried to humiliate me, tried to steal my property, tried to destroy my reputation. He targeted me because I am black, because I am old, because he thought I would be too ashamed to fight back." I paused, looked at the center behind me. He was wrong. And what he did not understand is that you cannot destroy what is built on truth. You cannot break what is strengthened by community. You cannot steal what belongs to generations. This center is named after my wife, Dorothy. She passed 5 years ago, but her spirit is alive here. She always said, "Baby, make sure our people know their worth. Make sure they protect what they build. Make sure they stand strong." So that is what we do here. We teach, we protect, we stand strong together. We teach financial literacy so our people cannot be exploited. We share stories so shame does not silence victims. We build networks so no one faces predators alone. Connor Hayes thought he could use my success against me. Instead, his crimes created this: a place where black families learn to protect generational wealth, a place where victims become teachers, a place where one man's hate cannot overcome a community's love. The crowd erupted in applause. I saw tears on faces, saw people hugging, saw hope. Aaliyah spoke next, brief and powerful. My father taught me to be proud of who I am. For a while I forgot that lesson, but I remember now. This center is about remembering our worth, remembering our strength, remembering that we protect each other. After the speeches, we opened the center for tours. People walked through the rooms, saw the classrooms, saw Dorothy's memorial, saw what transformation looked like. In the kitchen, we served food, soul food, fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, sweet tea. Dorothy's recipes prepared by church ladies who remembered her. Children played in the backyard garden. Elders sat in the shade sharing stories. Young couples asked questions about home ownership and financial planning. It was beautiful. It was community. It was exactly what Dorothy would have wanted. As the sun set and people started leaving, I stood with Aaliyah looking at the center. "Mama would be so proud," she said quietly. "She would be proud of you," I replied. "You took your pain and turned it into purpose." "We both did, Daddy. We both did." Thanksgiving 2025. 1 year since the plastic plate. 1 year since Connor Hayes humiliated me in my own house. 1 year since everything changed. The Dorothy Washington Community Center was packed. We had sent invitations to everyone in the community expecting maybe 50 people. Over 100 showed up. The house that once held Connor's white friends who watched me be degraded now overflowed with family, with community, with love. We had set up tables throughout the entire first floor. The living room, the dining room, the kitchen, even the hallway. Folding tables borrowed from the church covered with tablecloths in Dorothy's favorite colors, green and cream. Every table had a centerpiece of fall flowers. Every seat had a place setting. Real plates, real silverware, real glasses, nothing plastic, nothing on the floor. The food covered every available surface. Turkey ham dressing, sweet potato casserole, collard greens, mac and cheese, green beans, cranberry sauce, cornbread rolls, pies of every kind. Soul food prepared by dozens of hands, each dish a labor of love, each recipe passed down through generations. People filled every room. Minister Johnson and his family, Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Simmons, Mr. Foster, all the victims of Connor's schemes, Pastor Williams and half the congregation from First Baptist, Brenda Matthews with her children and grandchildren, David Porter and his wife, Detective Morrison, D.A. Carmen Williams, Mrs. Patterson from next door, Marcus Hayes, Connor's father, with his wife Angela, the black woman whose existence had triggered Connor's hatred. Young people, old people, children running through the house with the kind of joy that only comes from being surrounded by family. This was what Thanksgiving was supposed to be. This was what Dorothy had always wanted. A house full of love, full of community, full of people taking care of each other. Aaliyah moved through the rooms, making sure everyone had what they needed. Her locks were longer now past her shoulders, beautiful and natural. She wore a green dress that Dorothy would have loved. Her boyfriend Marcus was with her, helping serve food fitting into the family naturally. He was good for her, patient, kind, everything Connor had pretended to be. At 3 o'clock, Pastor Williams called everyone to attention. "Brothers and sisters, we are about to bless this food. But first we want to acknowledge something. 1 year ago today, something happened in this house that should never happen to anyone. Brother James was humiliated, disrespected, and targeted because of who he is. Today we gather to show that hate does not win. Community wins, love wins, family wins." The room erupted in applause and amens. "I want to share something," a voice called out. It was Denise Carter, whose sister had been engaged to Connor in Dallas. She stood up holding a piece of paper. 6 months ago, some of us who were victims of Connor Hayes started meeting monthly, a support group for people who had been targeted by financial predators. We call it the Survivors Circle. She looked around the room. There are 12 of us now, Connor's victims and victims of other con artists who target black families. We meet here at the center. We share our stories. We support each other. We teach each other the warning signs. And most importantly, we do not carry shame anymore. We carry strength. The room applauded again. Mr. Thompson stood next. Because of this center, because of Brother James's courage to stand up and speak out, we are not silent anymore. We are not hiding. We are protecting each other. That is what community means. Pastor Williams gestured for me to come to the front. "Brother James, will you bless the food?" I walked to the head of the main table, the same spot where Connor used to sit, where he had held court with his white friends while I stood at the door waiting for a place. Now I stood there as the patriarch, as the elder, as someone respected and honored. I looked around the room at all these faces, people who had stood with me, People who had rebuilt this house with their own hands. People who had refused to let Connor's hate be the final word. "Let us bow our heads," I said. The room fell silent. Over 100 people, heads bowed, hands clasped, waiting. "Father God," I began, my voice steady. "1 year ago today, I stood in this house and was treated like I was less than human. A plate of scraps was put on the floor for me. I was made to feel small, made to feel like I did not belong in the house I built with my own hands. I paused, emotion rising in my throat. But God, you did not leave me in that place. You gave me strength to stand up. You gave me courage to fight back. You gave me a community that refused to let me fight alone. Lord, we thank you for this food. We thank you for the hands that prepared it. We thank you for this house that was once a place of shame but is now a place of healing. We thank you for every person in this room who represents victory over hate. We thank you for my Dorothy, whose name is on this center, whose spirit lives in this work. We thank you that her dream of protecting our people continues. We thank you for my daughter Aaliyah, who found her way back to herself, who found her strength, who now helps others find theirs. We thank you for trials that make us stronger, for pain that teaches us compassion, for betrayal that shows us who our real family is. And God, we pray for those who tried to destroy us. We pray that Connor Hayes, sitting in a prison cell today, will find genuine remorse and change. We pray that others who target Black families will be stopped before they cause harm. We pray for protection over our community's wealth, our legacy, our future. Bless this food, bless this gathering, bless this center, and remind us that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. In Jesus' name, amen. The room responded with a thunderous amen. Then everyone moved to serve themselves, to eat, to celebrate. I sat down at the head of the table. Aaliyah sat to my right, Pastor Williams to my left. The table was full of people I loved, people who loved me back. Real plates in front of everyone. Real food. Real respect. As we ate, someone passed me a newspaper. The Austin American-Statesman. Front page of the Metro section had a headline that made me pause. Travis County creates Elder Financial Protection Task Force. Focus on preventing exploitation of Black wealth. I read the article. Following the high-profile prosecution of Connor Hayes, who systematically targeted elderly Black families for financial fraud, Travis County has established a task force to prevent similar crimes. The task force will provide free financial protection services, legal consultation, and education to elderly residents with special focus on communities of color that have historically been targeted by predatory schemes. The Dorothy Washington Community Center will serve as a hub for task force activities. We are taking the lessons learned from the Hayes case and turning them into preventive action, said District Attorney Carmen Williams. No elder should face what James Washington faced. This task force ensures they will not have to. I showed the article to Aaliyah. She read it and smiled through tears. Mama would be so proud, Daddy. You turned your pain into protection for thousands of people. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. I stepped into the hallway where it was quieter. Hello, Mr. Washington. A woman's voice, white nervous. My name is Catherine Sullivan. You do not know me, but I need to talk to you about Connor Hayes. My heart started beating faster. What about him? I was engaged to Connor, before he met your daughter, before any of the others you know about. This was 7 years ago. 7 years. That was before even Keisha Reynolds in Houston. Yes, sir. I am white. I was dating Connor when he was 29. We were together for 8 months. During that time, Connor asked me to help him with something. There was a Black family in our neighborhood. The Johnsons, different from Minister Johnson, you know. They owned a landscaping business, very successful. Connor wanted me to befriend Mrs. Johnson, gain her trust, get information about their finances. I felt cold. What kind of information? Bank accounts, property holdings, business accounts. Connor said he had an investment opportunity that would be perfect for them. He wanted me to make the introduction, said it would help them grow their business. Did you do it? Catherine's voice shook. I started to. I befriended Mrs. Johnson. We had coffee a few times. She was so kind to me, so welcoming. But then I found emails on Connor's computer. He was planning to defraud them, had a whole scheme worked out. When I confronted him, he got angry, said I was being naive, said this is how business works, said, and I quote, "These people have money they do not know how to protect. We might as well take it." I ended the relationship immediately, but I did not report it. I was young, scared, ashamed that I had almost helped him. I moved to California shortly after. But Mr. Washington, when I saw the news about your case, about all the black families he targeted, I realized I could have stopped this 7 years ago if I had spoken up. Why are you calling now, I asked. Because I want to testify. I want to make a formal statement. Connor is appealing his conviction, claiming the prosecution was biased. My testimony proves this is a pattern going back at least 7 years. Proves he specifically targeted black families. Proves this was never about family disputes or misunderstandings. This was always about racism and greed. I took a deep breath. Miss Sullivan, thank you for calling. Thank you for being willing to speak up now. I am so sorry I did not speak up sooner. You are speaking up now. That is what matters. I'm going to give you the number for my attorney, David Porter, and for Detective Morrison. Tell them everything you told me. I will. And Mr. Washington, I am sorry for what Connor did to you. I am sorry for the pain he caused. Miss Sullivan, Connor's crimes are not your burden to carry, but your testimony will help make sure he stays in prison and cannot hurt anyone else. After we hung up, I stood in the hallway for a moment processing this information. 7 years. Connor had been doing this for 7 years. How many other victims were out there? How many other families had he targeted or tried to target? I walked back into the dining room. The party was in full swing. People eating, laughing, celebrating. I caught David Porter's eye and gestured for him to come over. I told him about Catherine's call. His eyes widened. This is huge, James. This destroys his appeal. Shows a pattern going back 7 years. Shows he recruited accomplices. Shows premeditation. I will call Detective Morrison tomorrow. I looked around the room at the celebration at the community. We protect each other here, I said. That is what this center is about. Not just protecting black families, though that is our focus, but protecting all good people from predators who exploit trust. David nodded. That is the legacy you and Dorothy are building. We returned to the table. I looked at everyone gathered there. Minister Johnson telling stories to the children, Mrs. Simmons laughing with Pastor Williams, Mr. Foster showing Brenda photos of his grandchildren, Marcus and Aaliyah serving dessert together, her face glowing with happiness I had not seen in years. And I was at the head of the table, not on the floor, not with a plastic plate, not humiliated, not broken. At the head of the table, surrounded by community, honored and respected exactly where I belonged. Dorothy would be proud. Not just of the center, or the task force, or the justice we had won. She would be proud that we had taken hate and transformed it into love, taken destruction and transformed it into healing, taken one man's attempt to break us and used it to build something that would protect thousands. I raised my glass. Everyone quieted down, looked at me. To Dorothy, I said, who taught us to stand strong, to this community who stood with me when I needed it most. And to every person in this room who proves that love is stronger than hate, that community is stronger than cruelty, and that we protect our own. Always. The room erupted. To Dorothy, to community, to family, to love. We ate and celebrated until the sun went down. And when the last guest left, and Aaliyah and I stood in the empty center, looking at the tables covered with the remnants of joy, she hugged me tight. Happy Thanksgiving, Daddy. Happy Thanksgiving, baby girl. This is what it is supposed to feel like. Yes, she said. This is exactly what it is supposed to feel like. And for the first time in a year, everything felt right. The greatest wealth is not measured in properties or bank accounts. It is measured in community, in self-respect, in the courage to stand up when someone tries to make you small. Whether it is racism, exploitation, or betrayal, your worth is not determined by how others treat you. It is determined by how you refuse to accept mistreatment. Protect your legacy, document everything, and remember those who survived worse are watching. Honor them by refusing to be a victim. Stand tall, stand together, stand strong. If this story inspired you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear James's message. Comment below with your own story of standing strong. Thank you for watching.